We have strong partnerships with the public and private sectors, with donors and finance development institutions. The LevelUP program is our flagship program with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Supplies, supported by the Italian government. Within the framework of this program, we're working together with the ministry's staff on building their capacities for a better evidence-based policymaking. We're also applying UNIDO's value chain development approach to create employment for youth and women. UNIDO has a competitive advantage and integrated service packages that focus on supporting and accelerating growth of small and medium enterprises. In light of COVID-19 and the increased need of businesses for growth and reaching out to markets, UNIDO has developed the LevelUP Accelerator. The Accelerator aims to provide a range of business skills development training, including mentoring, incubation, and acceleration opportunities, among others. We're very happy to roll out this initiative together with our partners from the Jordan Export, JEDCO, and the Business and Professional Women's Association to advance Jordanian industries.
Good day. My name is Sana Khasane. I'm the Executive Director for Business and Professional Women Association. BPWA is a membership-based organization that has been established in 2003 and led by pioneering women who really believe in the power of a network. Our partnership with UNIDO is not the first time. Our partnership comes back to so many years, and it is so synergized with so many values and mission that meets of how can we really support women, specifically in the industrial development, sustainability, and globalization.
As a national development institution, JEDCO has continuously sought and implemented global good practices that promoted and utilized innovation, diligence, commitment to facilitate economic development and outreach across Jordan. With this purpose, JEDCO has launched a number of initiatives and programs to support startups and to enhance SMEs' export readiness and growth. JEDCO is always keen on partnering with other development institutions in the implementation of their activities, such as this partnership with UNIDO in the implementation of the LevelUP Accelerator initiative.
Salam, this is Zain Sultan from Jordan Exports. Jordan Exports is the national umbrella export promotion agency responsible for promoting and developing Jordanian exports globally. We aim to be the leading national institution responsible for sustaining the competitiveness and the growth of Jordanian enterprises in international markets. We hope this initiative will allow us to create and support women and youth-owned export-ready companies and enhance their export activities by entering new markets and expanding within their current markets. Participants and champions are potential exporters, and Jordan Exports will support them during LevelUP program and even further beyond.
Are you عم تسمعوني؟
لا دعاء ما سمعناكي.
هلا عم تسمعوني؟
يس 100%.
اوكي، كنت عم اقول شكرا لجميع الشركاء، ولكن شو هو البرنامج؟ شو حيقدم؟ شو هي القطاعات المستهدفة؟ وهل هناك فرصة تمويل عيني أو نقدي؟
كريم سمرة المؤسس والمدير التنفيذي لشينج لابس رح يشاركنا بعرض توضيحي عن برنامج مسرع الأعمال ليفل أب. نترككم على الفيديو.
هلا حنشوف فيديو يا كريم.
Everybody, it's Kareem Samra again, founder and CEO of Change Labs. You guys have heard a little bit more about the program from our partners. What I'd like to do now is take you a little bit through the details of the program and show you what you can expect to get, to receive, to achieve during the 7 or 8 months if you do apply and if you do get in to the 2021 LevelUP Accelerator Jordan Champions of Digital Change program. So let me begin by saying that, some of you will think that, this is a great way to get famous. And maybe it is. Maybe it is one way to get famous. Others will think this is a way to get rich. Again, maybe it is a way to get rich. But we're doing this because we want to encourage young and other entrepreneurs in Jordan to become makers, to contribute to their economy, to contribute to the competitiveness of Jordan. And so this program is meant not just to encourage, entrepreneurs to become makers, to help you makers launch your products, bring them to market, make money, become famous and influencers on social media, but also to help the economy and competitiveness of Jordan as a country. And we think this is critical, not just for Jordan, but for the whole MENA region. And again, I want to thank you, Nido. I want to thank all of the program partners for making this possible. So what we are asking essentially, or what we are doing, is we're launching the first program for entrepreneur makers, and we're targeting 3 key value chains: fashion and garments, natural cosmetics, and phytopharmaceuticals. Those are the 3 areas that this program is targeting specifically. As you know, the fashion industry is becoming one of the main drivers of economic potential in Jordan today. Okay, natural cosmetics, the beauty and personal care industries are booming globally, not just in Jordan, and Jordan has competitive advantages. Phytopharmaceuticals, okay, the demand for medicinal and aromatic plants is also globally experiencing double-digit growth. So these are all markets that are global in nature, okay, as consumers around the world are demanding natural, organic, ethical supply chains, sustainable products and services that are good for them. There is an opportunity opening up that Jordan and other places, but Jordan specifically, can take advantage of. And what we'd like to do with this program is help you take advantage of these global market trends, not just Jordanian. Of course, we're gonna help you launch your product in Jordan from a packaging perspective, from an e-shop perspective, online stores, from a branding perspective, okay? From a supplier perspective and raw materials perspective. We will help you make all of these connections and get all of that right. But most importantly, we'll help you access global markets as well. So what does the program consist of? Well, we're talking about a 7 or 8 month program. We're talking about free masterclasses, okay, that are happening in the next 2 to 3 weeks. You're all invited. You're all gonna get an invitation right after this announcement event to join our free masterclasses. That will give you a taste, that'll get you started on the journey, and it'll give you a good opportunity to understand the kind of learning that we'll be delivering during the program. Then there's going to be a 1 to 2 months e-learning program online, okay, that you'll all be invited to attend, those of you who get in now. So the masterclasses are open to the public. The e-learning program is open to the top 50 applicants, okay, 50. So apply today, changelabsme.org, attend the masterclasses, get to know other people applying, get to know some of the instructors and experts, and then once you get in, you'll get invited to the e-learning program. Once the e-learning program is complete, we will split you into 2 cohorts. The startups, the guys that are at the earlier stage, at the idea stage, don't worry. We have a program especially for you, and companies that are more advanced, that are SMEs, what we call SMEs. Maybe they're post-revenue, maybe they already have a product in the marketplace, right? And those will be taken through an accelerator, whereas the startups will be taken through an incubator, targeting earlier stage. Finally, when the 50 companies have gone through either the incubator or the accelerator, we will then pick the top 10, of course, with our partners, who will be given access to special advantages, access to Italy and other European markets, and a special trip possibly to Italy where you will meet some of the maker legends, okay? So today we are on June 22nd at the special event. You can see on the slide here, Masterclass number 1 is on June 30th. It's open to everybody. Masterclass number 2 is on July 8th, also open to everybody. And there's gonna be more information on those masterclasses a little later, and you'll get an email after this event inviting you and talking a little bit about the topics that'll be covered. We then go to the e-learning program for the top 50, which happens between August and September 2021. Then we have the LevelUP Accelerator and Incubator, both of them, right? Depending on what kind of a company you are. And finally, we have the 10 startups that'll be chosen as champions of digital change. That'll get a bunch of, funding, and support from the program. So everybody will get to benefit from the program, but a smaller group will become the champions of digital change. Okay, so it's a 6-month acceleration incubation program. You'll have coaches, you'll have experts, you will have amazing global networks of people that will help you and support you across your journey. You will have mentors that meet with you regularly, coaches and experts that have one-on-one office hours with you, and of course group sessions of all kinds to help you, and again, focusing on the specific areas that you need as a maker entrepreneur, whether it's branding, whether it's packaging, whether it's supply and raw materials. The whole supply chain of making your product and then selling it online is going to be covered in this learning program. Now, the other thing which is absolutely unique here is that we will have influencers who throughout the program will also work with you. And again, you're going to hear from some of those today. They've talked the talk and walked the walk, as they say. They have launched successful products. They often have hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of followers on social media, and they have successful packaging, branding, and revenue in the marketplace. So they've done it before. They know exactly how it works, and they will be there to guide you along your journey. Now, of course, we've brought together some of the most incredible partners to deliver this program to you and to make sure that we can deliver what we promise you. And so, you know, we have Jordan Exports, right, which is an export facilitation agency in Jordan. We have Jetco, right? We have the Ministry of Industry and Trade and Supply of Jordan. We have Italian on board to help with the Italian roadshow portion of the trip at the end, and with the content and the learning and the curriculum. We're also going to be running at the end of the program for all 50 of the companies, demo days with investors and partners and other leaders in the community. So these demo days will expose you to potential funding opportunities, to investors, to angels, to venture capitalists, right? Some of you may be familiar with our demo day that we just did in Jordan, the FinTech demo day. We've done in Egypt, we've done in Lebanon. So we're familiar with demo days. We work with investors around the region. We have great relationships, and they're all excited to meet you. But of course, at the right time, and assuming you've made the right level of progress, because a lot of you are not ready for investment yet. Once we work with you, once we help you with the product, once we help you launch your MVP or you know, get that product to become a stronger value proposition for the marketplace, not just in Jordan, but abroad, I think investors will be very interested to meet you. Now, what do you need to do? How can you be considered, you might be asking, for this LevelUP Accelerator program? Well, applications are open. Okay, you can visit levelupjordan.org or changelabsme.org. You can click the apply now button. You follow the instruction. It's a very quick application. Shouldn't take you more than 15 minutes to complete. And then you go ahead and submit it. We will review it and we will come back to you in the next few weeks with an answer, whether it's yes or no. In the meantime, right, after you complete your application, ideally or before, up to you, you can attend two free masterclasses, okay? There's one on June 30th, live on Zoom, and there's one on July 8th, also live on Zoom. You'll have like a 1 hour, 1.5 hour, 2 hour masterclass to kind of introduce some of the concepts that are most relevant to you guys for the purposes of this program. Don't forget to follow us on social media and get ready to become champions of digital change. Karim Samra, everybody, thank you.
يس، مثل ما حكى كريم، إذا كان عندك مشروع بيختص بالأزياء والموضة بكافة أشكالها مثل الحقائب والأحذية والمجوهرات تقدر تقدم لنا، أو قطاع صناعة الكريمات ومستحضرات التجميل بأنواعها، أو قطاع الأدوية والمستحضرات الطبية النباتية، لازم تشارك ببرنامج مسرع الأعمال لتنمي مشروعك وتزيد الفرصة للوصول إلى الأسواق العالمية. كمان إجانا سؤال حاب أجاوب عليه عشان الكل يعرف، إذا كان أنا عندي بلاتفورم أونلاين وأنا أنا مش منتج، بس أنا حابب أعمل بلاتفورم أونلاين وخلينا نحكي بدي أستهدف القطاعات أنتم بتحكوا عنها، يعني مثلا بدي أعمل بلاتفورم أونلاين للكوزماتكس بأنواعها اللي هي موجودة بتتصنع في الأردن، أكيد تقدر تشارك، خلينا نحكي كموزع. فشكرا لك على السؤال. ودعاء معك المايك.
يس، في عنا سؤال تاني كمان. Is it only for the Jordanian people؟ هل هو فقط للناس الأردنيين؟ مسرع الأعمال حيكون مفتوح لكل الناس بالأردن اللي عندهم أفكار شركات ناشئة، لأنه بعالم الأعمال أي حدا على أراضي البلد عنده فكرة بزنس فهي تعتبر بزنس بالبلد، وحتى للناس الأردنيين يلي من برا. فإذا عندكم أنتم فكرة بزنس بتنتمي تحت الثلاث قطاعات اللي حازم قالن واللي حنعيدهم مرة تانية. بليز ما تترددوا وقدموا لمسرع الأعمال. باب تقديم الطلبات مفتوح، فسارعوا واغتنموا الفرصة. بيواجه أغلب رواد الأعمال الكثير من التحديات بمشوارهم المهني، لا سيما ببداية تأسيس مشاريعهم. كيف بيتعاملوا مع هالتحديات بيحدد نجاح المشروع. لا شك إنه السنين الماضية كانت عاصفة بالتحديات على مختلف الصعد، ونحن بنحب نسمع منكم شو التحدي اللي قطعتوا فيه وتخطيتوه أو عم بتفكروا تتخطوه. تجدر الإشارة إنه مسرع أعمال ليفل أب هدفه يساعدكم إنه تتخطوا هيدي التحديات اللي عم تواجهوها. وشفت إنه يزن بالتشات بوكس كان حابب يشارك معنا. مزبوط؟
يزن خلينا نبدأ معك، وفي كمان نسرين حداد. مرحبا يزن.
مرحبا للجميع، كيف حالكم؟
أهلا فيك يزن.
أنا بحب أعرف عن نفسي. أنا يزن مخامرة، عمري 36، وحابب أشارك الجميع قصتي مع الفاشن ديزاين، لأنه أنا من سنتين لونشت البراند تبعتي بتحمل اسمي، فحابب أكون جزء من الليفل أب Accelerator، وكمان حابب أشارك قصتي. قصتي مع الفاشن بلشت منه أنا كتير صغير، لما كنت أشوف أمي كيف تتغير كل مرة بتلبس فيها أوتفيت مختلف، كيف الشخصية بتختلف، كيف كل شيء بيختلف. بلس أنا موهبتي هي الرسم، فكنت طول الوقت أحب أرسم وأخبر قصص من خلال السكتشز اللي بعملها من أنا بكي جي 1 زي ما أمي كانت بتحكي طول الوقت. بس كل السنين اللي قطعتها كان الفيجوال ارت بالتحديد والاركيتكتشر هو أكتر إشي باخذ عيني. بس كنت تايه بكل هاي الرحلة، لأني كنت محتاج ألاقي الستايل اللي بيعبر عني. فلذلك في ممكن أكون تأخرت تو لونش البراند، بس بعتبر إني أنا وصلت لمرحلة فيها نضج معين، إني أنا عرفت إيش الخط اللي لازم أمشي عليه. فبلشت بالفيلم ميكينج، بعدين انتقلت للكرياتيف رايتنج لاني بحب اخبر قصص. وبالاخير اخذت اشجع خطوه بعملها بحياتي سنه 2018، اني استقلت من الفول تايم جوب تبعي وخرجت برا الكومفورت زون، وقررت اني تو لونش ذا براند. ب 2019 اشتركت بمسابقه للفاشن ديزاين اسمها خيط، برضه اعطتني زائد الدبلومه اللي كنت عاملها هون بمدرسه بعمان، اعطتني بوش كثير قويه. فتحت لنا ماستر كلاسز، عرفتنا كيف الاندستري بتمشي، كيف لازم نكون نشتغل الاشياء الكوميرشال بطريقه اكاديميه صح. يعني مش هحكي للاسف، بس من سوء حظي اني ما ربحت، لانه هاي غريزه المحاربين بحبوا يربحوا دائما. بس جبت مركز كتير متقدم بخيط، وكملت بالبراند بعد خيط. وللاسف مره ثانيه اجت كورونا كوفيد 19، وهذا كان تحدي كتير كبير لشركه او لبراند. انا ما بحب احكي شركه، بحب احكي انه براند اكثر ولوكال براند، لاني كنت بحلم دائما اني اعمل إشي يكون مكتوب عليه عمان او ميد ان جوردن. فلشركه ناشئه كتير صغيره ولساتها بتشد حيلها باول الطريق، اجت كورونا فقعدتنا، فكان لازم اني برضه اخذ خطوه شجاعه ثانيه. فعلى طول البلان بي كانت موجوده، وغيرت طريقه كيف بشتغل، وعملت ري بادجيتنج، خصوصا انه انا لسه ما كان عندي هذاك التيم الكبير، وصرت اشتغل اكثر على الميد تو اوردر بيسز، وستيل سرفايفنج. وان شاء الله انه برضه بحقق مراكز متقدمه اكثر وبتعلم اكثر بالليفل اب، وكل شيء بيصير احسن. شكرا عشان سمعتوني.
شكرا يا زان. ان شاء الله مشاركتك معنا راح تدعمك لتقدر توصل لاسواق عالميه وتساعدك بالخطوات، خلينا نحكي، اللي تغلبت فيها خلال جائحه كورونا. شكرا لك يا زان.
شكرا جزيلا. شكرا.
معنا كمان نسرين حداد. نسرين حداد هي مالكه العلامه التجاريه نسا ليسا، وهي مستحضرات تجميل طبيعيه. مرحبا نسرين.
اهلا حازم، كيفك؟
تمام اهلا وسهلا.
حابة أعرف عن نفسي أكثر. أنا نسرين حداد، عندي شركة أسستها من سنة 2017 تعتمد على منتجات طبيعية للتجميل. فكرة المنتج صدر من تجربة شخصية، إنه أنا as a makeup artist وخبيرة تجميل 13 سنة، واجهت مشاكل بالبشرة والشعر حسب يعني نحكي الأشخاص اللي كنت أتعامل معها. وتجربة الشخصية اللي صارت معي إنه صار عندي مشكلة بشعري وانحرق شعري بإحدى الصالونات، وقصة طويلة بس حابة أختصرها. إنه لقيت إنه في نتائج يعني تنقول كثير قوية من الزيوت الطبيعية والمنتجات الموجودة بالأشجار وبذور النباتات والقصص هاي. فعملنا ريسيرش عليها وعملت عليها دراسة بألمانيا عن طريق خالة إلي، هو مهندس كيميائي، وطورت هاي الفكرة تصير كمنتج لتحل هاي المشاكل الجلدية الموجودة بكل بيت. فعندي هلا برودكت تقريبا اسسته تقريبا 6 برودكت تخدم وبتحل مشاكل جلدية متنوعة كنقول حب شباب والكلف والنمش والتجاعيد وتساقط الشعر، وحتى ايفن للرموش عملنا هلا منتج جديد بتعالج رموش الصبايا اللي بتعاني من تساقط، خاصة باستخدام الرموش الصناعية. هلا هاي المواد اللي عم نحكي منها انه هي انتاج منتجات طبيعيه 100% مع فيتامينز، عم تعطي نتائج سريعه لكل صبيه او شاب ممكن يستخدمها، لانه هاي المنتجات بتخدم الاثنين، بتخدم الرجال والسيدات والمشاكل اللي بنعاني منها من غير اي مواد كيماويه او اي مواد حافظه موجوده بالمنتج، زائد انه نتائجها سريعه وحلوه. فحبيت هاي الفكره اني انا من تجربه شخصيه اكونها كمنتج وتصير متداوله بين الناس. وفعليا فتحت سوق بعمان، وخاصه كان انا عندي اسواق سياحيه اللي هي بالبازارات السياحيه ونحكي محلات السيفونير شوب. بس كمان واجهت صعوبه من ناحيه اللي مرقنا فيها الكوفيد 19، انه تعرفوا وضع السياحي والقطاع السياحي شو صار فيه عنا. في هاي الفتره توجهت بفكره ثانيه، انه انا اسس ويب سايت خاص للشركه. طبعا ويب سايت اخذت وقت مضبوط، بس الهدف هلا انه نفتح فيرتشوال ماركت ونهدف للاسواق الخارجيه. في طلب على هذا الموضوع وتوجه، خاصه مع كوفيد 19 الناس قدرت قديش المواد الطبيعيه مهمه، ان كان باكلنا وشربنا وان كان حتى بالمستحضرات والمواد اللي بنحطها على جسمنا.
صحيح.
حابه اشارك هذا الموضوع صراحه، لانه الاسواق الخارجيه متوفره، بس احنا الهدف انه كيف نقدر نوصلها. يعني هاي ان شاء الله بمساعدتكم كمان ممكن احنا نستفيد منكم، انه كيف التشانلز هاي تفتحوا لنا اياها بطريقه سلسه ومضبوطه بدراسه. فعليا احنا فتحنا سوق بالكويت، بس بعدها ظروف صعبه تنقول يعني سوري استيراد وتصدير، وهي الامور عمالنا شوي عم نلاقي فيها صعوبه. وان شاء الله بالبروجرام تبعكم انه نقدر يكون لنا مجال ولنا الفرصه ان نطور بشركتنا ونكبر يعني على ايدكم. ثانك يو سو ماتش.
يعني نسرين، انت بتعتبري انه شركتك بمرحله يعني جاهزه بعمان، كل شيء تمام، بس انت عندك نقص بموضوع التصدير، انت حابه توصل للاسواق العالميه، هذا هدف من مشاركتك، يعني خلينا نحكي الهدف الرئيسي من مشاركتك معنا.
تمام، بالضبط. لانه انا بلاحظ يعني حتى عن طريق مواقع التواصل الاجتماعي موجوده عنا، انه في كثير اسئله وفي كثير ناس انترستد بالبرودكت من برا.
من
فليش
برا.
ما يكون هذا البرودكت موجود عندهم، عرفت، بس بالطريقه المضبوطه. يعني احنا مثلا نعمل نبعث لهم اياه ديليفري وهي، بس بضل في صعوبه يعني انه لما يكون متداول، يعني تكون البرودكت موجوده بالبلد مش زي ما بتكون اونلاين، يعني بضل الناس تحكي عنها اكثر وسهوله.
صحيح. والمواد الاوليه الموجوده بالاردن مش موجوده بمكان ثاني، يعني مثل املاح البحر الميت وغيرها كثير مش موجوده، والنباتات طبعا مش موجوده بمكان ثاني. فالهدف من التصدير اكيد جدا مهم، والناس عندهم نقص بالمواد الموجوده عندنا بالاردن.
تمام. احنا
شكرا.
بيت البرودكت عندنا من زيت الزيتون صراحه، يعني احنا بنينا على
زيت
زيت
الزيتون.
الزيتون. يس، المعادله تبعتنا.
شكرا لك نسرين، وبنتمنى لك التوفيق معنا. حاب اجاوب على سؤال اجانا من حمزه، اخر سؤال. طبعا هنعطيكم الفرصه كمان مره بعدين اذا بتحبوا تشاركونا باسئله او مشاركات عن مشاريعكم. حمزه سال سؤال: اذا المشروع قائم على على استيراد الملابس من تركيا وبيعها اونلاين بالاردن، فهل هذه الفكره مناسبه للبرنامج؟ حمزه، البرنامج بيهدف لتشجيع الانتاج، خلينا نحكي الانتاج الاردني والتصدير. احنا هذا الهدف من مشروعنا، يعني احنا بدنا ندعم خلينا نحكي الشباب والصبايا بعمان والاردن ككل انه ينتجوا ويصنعوا. فاحنا بنحثك وبنشجعك انه كمان تعتمد، خلينا نحكي، على الاسواق المحليه، على الجمعيات تتواصل معها، ممكن من خلالهم كمان تقدر تبيع اونلاين، وحتى مش بس بالاردن، مش استيراد، كمان تصدير. واعتقد انه كمان افضل وافضل. فاذا بتحب تستهدف، خلينا نحكي، الاسواق الاردنيه من خلال انه تنتج وتصدر برا، اكيد اهلا وسهلا فيك، واحنا بنشجعك ورح ندعمك ان شاء الله. شكرا حمزه.
شكرا لك حازم، بس بدي اتاكد انتم سامعيني.
100%.
عظيم، شكرا لك حازم. اما عن يومنا المفتوح اليوم، فحيشارككم حازم مره ثانيه بجدول الحصص التدريبيه اوقاتها، شو حتكتسبوا من هون لاخر النهار وغيرها. الاجنده
اكيد دعاء. تمام الساعه 11:30 رح يكون عندنا حصه تدريبيه عن الاقتصاد الدائري، مدتها ساعه، رح تقدم لنا اياها الخبيره البيئيه بياتريس فيريز، ورح نعطيكم الفرصه لتسالوا اسئلتكم في نهايه الحصه. بعد هيك رح يكون عندنا جلسه رح يشاركنا فيها انس عرض توضيح الحديث عن رحلته والاشياء اللي تعلمها من خلال تجاربه، ورح تكون مدتها كمان ربع ساعه. وحصتنا التدريبيه الثانيه رح تكون مع اليزابيتا فرناندو، ورح نتحدث فيها عن التفكير التصميمي، مده الحصه ساعه، ورح يكون نهايتها كمان اسئله تفاعليه، ورح نعطيكم الفرصه تسالوا اسئلتكم لتجاوب عليها مباشره. وبنختم يومنا المفتوح بفيديوهات مصوره لقصص نجاح لسيدات اردنيات رياديات. شكرا لك دعاء.
شكرا حازم. لكن هلا بنبدا اولى حصصنا التدريبيه مع المدربه بياتريس فيريز، يلي هي متخصصه بالعلاقات الدوليه والاقتصاد البيئي، كما انها خبيره باقتصاد المناخ، الاقتصاد الدائري والتدابير العامه المستدامه او الخضراء. خلال مسيرتها المهنيه اشتغلت بياتريس كمستشاره بتنميه القطاع الخاص، مع التركيز بشكل اساسي على النساء والشباب، خصوصا بمنطقتنا، منطقة الشرق الأوسط وشمال إفريقيا. حتشاركنا اليوم بياتريس خلال الحصة التدريبية معلومات أكثر عن الاقتصاد الدائري، يلي بيهدف أنه يقضي على الهدر المستنزف للموارد الطبيعية، بالإضافة لتنظيم استخدامها وخلق استراتيجيات خضراء ومستدامة بالاقتصاد. الاقتصاد الدائري يعتبر اليوم من أهم الحلول عالميا لمشاكل المناخ، فحتتعرفوا عنه أكثر حأترككم مع سيشن مع الحصة التدريبية مع بياتريس. Are you with us, Beatrice?
Thank you, Duma. These problems and the challenges that circular economy responds to are so much more important in the MENA region because of the pressures on certain resources that are particularly strong in the region. So on that note, I will start by sharing my screen. Welcome to everyone to this masterclass. It's really about translating what can be a somewhat muddled or a little bit of confusing concept, which is of circular economy. And often the question that you get is, what does it mean in practice? So this is sort of the point of the masterclass, is to look at it from a practical and concrete point of view, and how you can start thinking about it, and more importantly, how you can start asking yourselves the right questions about how to integrate circular economy into your business at whatever stage it's at, whether you're just starting to think about the concept, or if you're already going on certain production processes and what you might be able to do and audit in your own processes to be more sustainable. So just a quick recap of some of the things that I hope you will get by the end of this masterclass is that there is a case, and a very strong one, for integrating sustainability in your business. And that involves a very clear change in logic from a linear economy, which is one that is a one track from making to disposing, and obviously starting with extracting, and rather one of circular economy, which I'll go into a little bit more detail in a little bit. Then, of course, I'll go through some case studies, and also just those leverage points within your own production processes where you can start to think about either the materials you're using or the processes that you're using, or how you're designing your products. And of course, the point that I will continue to hammer home almost on every single slide is the importance of working with partners in order to implement circular economy, because it's just not possible for one company to implement a full circular economy model without engaging partners and the ecosystem around it. And finally, I'll suggest a roadmap of how you can start to think about all the things that have been discussed in more concrete terms, and how you can look at your business in order to implement what was discussed. So going back to the case for integrating sustainability, I think, it's very clear with the COVID crisis, but even with the more recent crisis in the Suez Canal, that there is a volatility in prices and in supply chains in general which means that there is an increasing instability in terms of the prices of certain key raw materials, whether that's metals, I mean, of course, fossil fuels, but also food and non-agricultural, non-food agricultural materials. So just to show you this graph very quickly about how that volatility has increased, even just compared to 1995. Of course, you see a spike in 2008 because of the economic crisis, but that has continued to define the way that resource prices are fluctuating at the moment. And so thinking about sustainability allows you to think about how you can add stability to your own supply chain. In addition, circular economy and sustainability are a key part of how you develop your offering and reach new customers with the hopes of growing your revenue. I'll go back a little bit into perhaps the caveats to that specific claim of growing your revenue, but again, I'll come back to that. It's also about capturing value by extending the lifetime of your products. And it also allows you to differentiate from your competitors, increase resource efficiency, for example, in your production. And increasingly, we are seeing that if you're looking for investments in your business, one of the requirements that are asked of are to disclose your sustainability performance. So it really makes sense to start to think and ask yourself these questions in order to make the case for your business that much stronger. So in terms of what circular economy is, essentially it's about capturing inefficiencies in the value chain. So the diagram that you see on your screen right now is just your typical process of, going from a business idea to how you create and design your product, then producing it, distributing in sales, then how your customer uses it, and then what happens at the end of its life, which is effectively disposal in a linear economy. So you'll see that in a linear economy, often there is no real question or conversation about the sustainability of the materials you're using in your production itself. You're also missing out on a bunch of opportunities to engage customers. And there's also, in general, a premature ending to the life of the products you're creating because of the lack of customer engagement and customer education. That means that when you create a product, your customer isn't using it as intensely as it could be used, and they're disposing of it more quickly. And of course, at the end of life, I mean, if we look at like the value chain of textiles, where 99% in some countries goes to waste, clearly that is far from being something where you are using something at the end of its life to recreate something new. So this is where we come into circular economy. This illustration sort of just describes what I was saying, but the point of circular economy is basically to eliminate the waste portion of the value chain. So it's effectively to design out waste at every possible opportunity, and also to keep resources in the ground as much as possible. So that you're basically compressing what you mean by your manufacturing process and the entire life of your product, while removing waste and trying to keep resources, those that are finite, where they are, and using them as effectively as possible if you are using them. So there are two ways to think about how you keep value in your in the circular economy. You either retain your raw materials or your products as biological nutrients, which basically means that anything that you use is able to return back to its natural state. That can be as simple as a t-shirt that's made of pure cotton will eventually come back to being something that is compostable under the right conditions. You also have technical nutrients, which is, for example, if using the same example of fibers, if you're using a kind of nylon fiber, the idea is that you continue to maintain the value of the fiber as long as possible and as close to the maximum value that you had when it was sold to the customer. And of course, if that is not possible, that you maintain it in the system under various different strategies. So just the last two principles behind the circular economy before we get to something very tangible and concrete. The idea is therefore to keep things in the cycle as long as possible, and also to cascade, which means, like I said before, to keep things at their maximum value as long as possible, and then not to return directly to a complete raw material, whether that's technical or biological, but to try and use it in a maybe sub-value product that still has more value than if you had just completely returned it to its raw state. So to really simplify the production process and how you can think about circular economy, I will break down the manufacturing and selling process into 3 different stages. The inputs you use, the use of the products you create, and what happens after your customer has used that product, and how you can think about circular economy at each of these stages. So if we start with the inputs and production itself, and if you look at sourcing, sort of the foundational principle for circular economy is that you're identifying and using renewable energy, bio-based and less resource-intensive inputs that can be fully recycled. As I said before, that can be technical or biological nutrients when I talk about recycling and returning to nature. So really, when you're sourcing, you have to keep that in mind. Is the point of your sourcing to preserve the technical nutrients or the biological ones? And I'm going to keep emphasizing this point as we go along. So just to bring in our first case study, for example, if you look at the circular series from Napapiri, which is an athletic garment company, the challenge they were trying to address, and that's one that a lot of companies in the apparel industry face, is that when you're creating a product, there are many subcomponents to that product. And traditionally, they're made from many different kinds of materials. So for example, a jacket can have up to 25 different components, from the zippers to the buttons to the fillers to the stitches. There's a lot of different components, and traditionally, like I said, they use different materials, which makes recycling very difficult. That's not to say that there aren't actors who do that recycling, but it makes it less likely that that infrastructure exists uniformly where that product is being disposed of when it's no longer in use. So the solution that Napapiri came up with is that they decided to go with just one material, which is nylon 6. So again, it's not about removing plastic or polyesters entirely from your supply chain, but it's just being more deliberate in the choice of material that you're making, with the objective that, for example, it's easier to recycle and to recover that material. So in order to make that happen, they produce jackets with just the one material. So that's from the filling to the buttons to the zippers. And then to close the loop, once the jackets aren't wearable anymore, they've partnered with another company called Aquafil, which recycles these nylon 6 yarns so that they can then be used again to produce exactly the same jackets. So when we talk about closing the loop, that is a pretty perfect example of that. But again, as I was saying before, the importance of partnerships, because it is unlikely that companies, including Napapiri, have the technology to do the recycling in-house. So they're working with a partner who is the one who has the technology to make this happen, and that is how they've closed the loop. Now, if we look at a different example of sourcing, and again, going back to developing ecosystem partnerships, if you look, for example, at the case study of the Crush range by Upcycled Beauty, they've created a range of exfoliating scrubs from skincare. And what's interesting here is that it's based on plant-based leftovers. So again, it's completely different from the textile industry. It's more around the biological nutrient side of things. And what they've done is they've looked at the waste products and the byproducts of existing agricultural processes and used that as their raw material for certain goods. For example, the pips, when you're making fruit pulp, they've used that as an exfoliant. Same with the pits from olives, and also for charcoal powder. Now here, this is an interesting example because again, it really shows how partnerships are important. The way they're sourcing the wood for their charcoal powder is they're working with a company that makes oak fences. So the offcuts from that process are used in the range of this particular company. But this is to say that the sourcing is important. You have to be sure that the company you're sourcing from is also following the same principles of sustainability in their own production process to ensure that there's a transparency and a consistency in your supply chain. So for example, here, they're very clear that the company that makes these oak fences is very diligent about what it does with the oak cuts, its use of chemicals and materials, so that nothing is toxic for skincare, which in this case is particularly important. Then we also have that as part of sourcing and circular economy, you can become a circular supplier. So it's not just about using raw materials and sourcing from other partners, but you can be the one who develops the technologies to provide other companies with the raw materials and the input materials that they might need. So for example, we have Worn Again Technologies, which specializes in the technology of recycling non-reusable textiles. So normally, you know, what I was saying before is there are certain textiles where if you blend, it becomes very difficult to recycle. So for example, cotton poly blends, very difficult. This company has specialized in recovering those fibers. And normally what happens when you're recycling fibers is why it's difficult to upcycle is that the fibers get shorter as you're recycling them, which means that their uses are more limited than their original use. But this company, again, has specialized in keeping those fibers as long as possible and reducing the amount of waste from that recycling process. And they now work with big textile companies and provide them with the raw material. So that's just a different angle on how circular economy can become part of your core business. It's, you know, to be that company that supplies others and enables them to be circular in their own processes. So if we now look at product design, the idea behind this is to really think at the very start on how you can make products that are built to last, that are easy to repair, maintain, refurbish, and recycle. So, you know, and also how those decisions make the use of that product by the consumer as efficient as possible. And there, you know, different companies have done this in different ways. In textiles, this is again particularly prominent. If you look, for example, at Nudie Jeans as a company, where part of their value proposition is also that although, for example, a button cannot be recycled in the same way as the textile of their jeans, they want you to reuse the button. So they've created this entire campaign on making the button something that you can remove. It does depend on some customer loyalty, but that it can then be put onto the next jeans. And they also raise awareness of how you can maximize the recyclability of your jeans by the time you are no longer using them. Same with CNA, which is another company that produces clothes. They work very hard to make sure the labels, the threads, and the buttons that they use on certain lines are easier to recycle. These are very quick examples that you can go ahead and look into a little bit more after this masterclass. So when it comes to product design, the idea is also, you know, it's not just about textiles, of course. If you look, for example, at Frosch, which makes cleaning products, but is considered sort of a gold standard when it comes to the packaging that they use for those products. It's always about bearing in mind what is the most easily recyclable product and how, even if you have to apply branding, you can bring the product back to that state as easily as possible. So, you know, if we look at this picture, it's between, you know, the clear plastic bottle and the one that has the applied branding and the nozzle and everything. So, for example, Frosch, they will even look at the glue between the label and the bottle to make sure that it is easy enough to take off to promote the recycling of that product. So really, it can go very deep in terms of how you think of designing your product for maximum recyclability. But yeah, I would encourage you to do a deep dive on this because lots of companies have developed lots of different ways to do this. So when it comes to the manufacturing process, depending on the value chain, the processes can be very different. And I'll later point out some resources, for example, in the textile value chain on certain processes that have been evaluated and recommendations. So if you look at the machinery and equipment, the idea is to opt for machines that reduce consumption of water and energy. As I said before, in the MENA region, that's particularly important given the strain on resources such as water. The idea is also to reuse the water as long as possible in the production process through various different technologies, including filtration processes. The idea is also to introduce quality control feedback loops. So as quickly as possible, so that when you're creating a product, you know right away if it has a defect, and so that you're increasing the chances that your products are right the first time and right every time after that. So it's really about, at every stage of your process, being observant and looking for the feedback on the quality to minimize the waste that you're creating at the pre-consumer level. When it comes to chemicals and dyes, you know, the gold standard is to source biodegradable and environmentally friendly chemicals and enzymes. Again, I would refer to the Good Fashion Guide here for the textile and garment industry, just because they have broken down the dyes and chemicals into like their larger groups and clusters, and sort of evaluate what you need to keep in mind when it comes to a circular economy approach. But I'll link back to that at the very end. And obviously the idea is also to reduce the number of processing steps just to increase the efficiency of the process. And finally, when it comes to the wastewater treatment, going back to earlier of the efficient use of water, in the event that you are unable to treat the wastewater in a way that it can be reused, to consider where it can go next. So for example, is it possible to sell the wastewater as fuel? That again is something that you will have to audit your ecosystem to see if that service is available and whether it's feasible for your company to include that as part of your process. So final point on the circular inputs in production, and no less important, is really thinking and bringing together all of this in terms of the packaging. So here you really have to be mindful of the, the most prominent trends when it comes to this field. So for example, for packaging, it's zero or near zero waste, and using recyclable materials as much as possible. Especially because, I mean, I think there was research not very long ago that said that something like 60 to 80% of customers will look at the recyclability of the packaging when they're making a decision about that product. So that's not an insignificant thing, and you should really be leveraging that in how you're thinking about packaging. The other thing is you can use bio-based packaging materials. For example, there's been a huge boom in the use of mycelium packaging. This is obviously, soft packaging and not your hard shell packaging. And what has become increasingly prominent in the cosmetics, in the cleaning products, and just liquid product sectors is the idea of designing with refill in mind. So, as you can see in the images on the right, it's about creating a product with a packaging that reflects your brand, but also about creating a product that can refill that packaging, if that makes sense. So you're creating effectively two things. One that can be reused as long as possible, and the second, allowing them to refill and use that product as long as possible. And finally, just to say that packaging does serve to articulate the transparency of your brand, including on ingredients. And so it really needs to be a very strong part of how you sell your approach to circular economy to the customer. So now if we go to the second stage of circular use, which is when your product reaches the consumer and how they use it. Now, the fact is that sometimes you don't have much control on what the customer does with your product. The idea is rather to extend the life of that product if you can, or to educate consumers on how they can do that. So for example, what a company might be able to do is provide maintenance services to extend the life of existing products. And we see that with some clothing brands, where as part of what they're offering, and it allows them to charge a premium as well, because they put their money behind the idea that their textiles are durable and long life, is to offer these maintenance services. Then you can also, but this is perhaps more also on the customer side, you can encourage them to share their used goods, their used textiles or their used products to second and third hand markets. And you may decide that that is a part of the market that you as a company want to engage in, whether that's collection or separation and treatment. Then there's also refurbishing and remanufacturing to restore the functionality of goods. The idea here is that upcycling is always a better, is a more circular approach than recycling, which is to retain the value of the product as close to or at exactly the same level as when that product was used by the customer. So again, going to textiles, where you see that 45%, for example, are sold and reused as second wearable clothing. That is very close to its original value. But you also see that 30% of materials are converted into wiping and polishing cloths. So that is converting the materials into something that is of less value and that will keep cascading down to the point where it reaches fiber materials, and those have very little value. So again, it's about empowering customers with better information so that you can inform and educate them on how they can buy and use their products. So just a short case study on one company that is doing this, Patagonia, which is obviously a very large and prominent brand when it comes to athletic wear, is they really put a strong emphasis on the lifetime warranty behind their products. And they're able, like I said before, to charge a premium for that because they commit to repairing the item or even replacing it if it in some way fails during the use by the customer. But what they've done that it goes a step further is that they want to keep the repair and care as close to the user as possible so that you aren't sending back the product to them unless the repairs really are beyond their means. So they've actually spent a lot of time recently teaching consumers how to repair their own products. And you can find it online where, you know, if you want to repair your trousers or your tops or your luggage, they put specific instructions on how you can do that. And that's another way of extending the life of the product. There's also, when it comes to use, a different model, which is that the producer retains ownership of the product that they're creating, and it gives them better control of how they can process it once it's no longer in use and how, you know, how it goes back to being a raw material for something else. And oftentimes those models include leasing and pay-per-use, which actually is increasingly common in the textile value chain, for example, where the idea of renting out clothes either through a physical store or online has become sort of, it is increasingly mainstreamed in certain countries. Having said that, not everywhere, because it does require quite a lot of logistics. And certainly, if you look at the companies that are doing it currently, it doesn't extend to beyond the national economy that you're operating in. So it's very difficult to implement at a regional or international scale. But the key here is that there are ways of renting and really retaining the control of that product, but it's important to communicate the quality and the hygiene of your product to ensure that people buy into it as long as possible. And again, that really brings in what I'll get back to later, the importance of communication and communicating the work that you are doing as far as trying to be sustainable in your production and design of a product. So if we look at, for example, this company called Houdini, they will rent, you can pick anytime from 1 to 3 weeks where you pick an item of clothing, then they return it and the washing and the garment care is taken over by the company to be then re-put on their website. Now, if you are selling clothes online already via an e-commerce website and you have a returns policy, this may not be that difficult to implement. However, it does require much more thinking in terms of the logistics of it. So now if we come to the after use, so this is once your customer no longer wears or effectively disposes of the product, how do you recapture the value of that product at the end of its life so that you aren't relying on a virgin material to recreate the product and to continue selling it? So one of the ways of doing that is to think about how you can recover the item itself through some kind of return system or reverse logistics, and how you can incentivize customers, more importantly, to be part of that system of returns. So one example of this, which I found was very interesting, is this company that creates t-shirts. And not only do they create products that are designed to be fully recyclable, but they also put a QR code on the labels of their products so that when a customer no longer wants to use a product and would go to dispose it, they can scan the QR code and it generates a free post label so that the customer can then send the garment back to T-Mill. So that's just one way of where you see the interface between technology and circular economy. And here they're trying to make it as easy as possible for their consumer to return the products. Then if we look at a completely different value chain with Burt's Bees, which tends to create more of the skincare products again, this is a rather complicated logistics model, but the idea is that the packaging is designed to be recovered. So a customer would pay, for example, a $2 deposit. They would then receive a glass bottle with the product that they've ordered, and then they would send back the empty bottle and recover that deposit. Now, this does require working with a recycling logistics partner. In this particular example, they're working with LevelUP, which is a company that also recycles and specifically takes care of delivering and recovering the product in the best possible conditions. So that's just, if we're looking all the way to the most ambitious versions of recovery, then that's probably one of them. And the idea, obviously, as I said before, there are many different places that you as a business can intervene. You can also be the company that transforms waste into raw materials. It is more technology intensive, but it is a revenue stream. So whether you are a company that traditionally does something else and want to add as a revenue stream that particular operation, that is possible, but it just requires quite a strong cooperation between recyclers and producers. So this is definitely one of the transversal themes of this masterclass, which is if you're going to do the hard work of trying to design and think about circular economy and sustainability throughout your process, you have to communicate that to your customer. And the key value that customers are interested in is transparency when it comes to circular economy and green marketing in general. It's about transparency and how across your value chain you are practicing the principles that you are talking about in how you sell your product. So it's really about giving visibility to your hard work when it comes to sourcing, production, and product design. If we look, for example, at the image, this is taken from Nokia, actually. So it's a completely different value chain again. But the idea is to really express the benefits of implementing sustainability in your product by looking at its operational impact, that can be environmental, the product level impact, and also the societal impact. Often customers are interested in all three of those aspects when they're making decisions based on sustainability criteria. When it comes to reuse and communicating that, it's very important to communicate continued quality and hygiene of the product when the product is recovered and resold, because I think a lot of people can identify with that. The concern is about whether when that product is recovered, it retains the same quality, is it clean? So if that is a model that you're going for, it's very important that you emphasize those specific aspects in your communications. Of course, certifications do add credibility, and as part of being transparent, it's probably one of the most effective ways of going by a third-party certification to communicate the principles behind your sustainability strategy. And really, going back to all the things I was saying before, it is important for your customer to be loyal and to buy in to what you're trying to do when it comes to circular economy. For example, it'll incentivize them and make them care about returning products or care about repairing their products. So it is important that you get their buy-in and just work as a unit effectively. So I'm just going to go into two different case studies of brands that have focused on communicating their value on the principles of circular economy. So for example, the Nigerian brand NKWO, it works very hard to educate consumers about the waste generated by the textile industry. That is a key part of its communication strategy. And in response to that, they have said they will only create one collection a year, which, as you will know, is very at odds with the increasing number of collections that the largest textile companies are producing at the moment. So it's basically countering and rejecting the dominant notions of fast fashion, and that's part of their communication strategy. They also use waste as the raw material for their garments and textiles, and that is also very present in the way that they, in their marketing campaigns. For example, the Web of Things, I thought was a particularly strong version of connecting the textiles to their raw materials. And of course, as part of adding value and a story, like a story is very important to the marketing that you do around circular economy. And so as part of that story, they're also choosing to highlight the strong Nigerian roots to the brand, and how there's a strong connection between circularity and that Nigerian culture. And that is a story that they're weaving around their product. If we look at a completely different brand and how they're choosing to approach the comms aspect of it, we can look at Nudie Jeans. So here, I'm just going to quickly share a different screen of the website so you can see what their approach is. Just give me a second. Okay. Just a quick second and I will pull it right up. All right, so this is a brand that creates jeans, but it is really, it's showing a completely different part of communicating about circularity, which is what I was saying before about the transparency at every stage of production. So if you look, for example, at their sustainability, it's right up there, and they provide all kinds of information about the materials they use, their production processes, the products. And so they're really highlighting as much as possible on sustainability. And that goes beyond the environmental aspect. It's also about the social. So it's really about achieving that triple bottom line, which is social, environmental, and economic considerations. So if we look, for example, at sustainable production, of course, they provide more information on that specific process. But what I want to show you, which I find very interesting, is their production guide. Just a sec. So, you know, if we're taking transparency to the next level, they will tell you, depending on the product, where it is produced. So actually, can someone just quickly confirm that they can see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Perfect, thank you. So you can, as a customer, you can see, depending on the product that you're buying from them, where it has been produced. If, let's say, I go to Knits, I can see who the name of their supplier. I can see, for example, the auditing process behind the suppliers and what company is the one carrying out the audits. I can see the materials that they're using, and again, here you see you see the names of the suppliers. And so this is really taking it to the next level. But again, if you are doing that as part of your production, why not give value to that and make it part of the way you communicate to your customers? So this is just another really interesting example of how you can communicate the work that you're doing as part of implementing circular economy. Okay, so let me just jump back to my PowerPoint. So the other element of this, and which I've touched upon briefly, is how you can easily combine circular economy with digitalization. The idea being that real-time information and feedback is central to really learning about how to be as efficient as possible with the resources that you're choosing to use. So it can also enable better transparency. For example, in certain industries, the use of an RFID tag is becoming increasingly common. And all that means is that this tag will remain on the product throughout its use, and you can get information about its various stages of production, its transport from that tag. So that enables a better transparency of the supply chain. You can also be more efficient in production through the use of sensors. And again, going back to the idea of really getting things right the first time and getting them right as many times as possible to reduce waste on the floor before your product even gets to the consumer. It also allows you to be more deliberate in how you undertake maintenance on your production equipment. So, you know, any kind of sensor that will tell you how that equipment is doing means that you're making a better decision about when to carry out maintenance. And of course, it also really facilitates the logistics aspect of, I mean, and this goes beyond circular economy, really. It's just the benefit of digitalization that works so well with bringing in circular economy. So this image is just sort of, you know, I'm not going to go into every single component on here, but there are different technologies that are appropriate at different parts of production, whether that's extending the life of a product to giving transparency to the supply chain, or in helping to recover and recycle the product once it's no longer in use by a customer. So really, what do you do with all this information? Hopefully it's been inspiring enough to allow you to start thinking of, what are the small steps that you can take in really starting to think about circular economy. And there's sort of this is just a roadmap of what you might want to think of when you're starting. So the first thing, of course, is to initiate and explore. And that is about mapping what technologies exist, what opportunities exist, understanding the ecosystem and what actors are out there that can really help you at various parts of a production process. Are you able to carry out, for example, and use this technology in-house, or would you outsource? And then the partner becomes very important. The other thing is you also have to analyze and reanalyze your customer base, because if you're a company that is currently with a certain customer base, you have to think about how these changes will affect that. For example, in general, when you're creating a circular product, you do expect that the price of that product will go up because it does integrate the externalities behind the production process that something like fast fashion does not take into account. So you have to ensure that how you're analyzing your customer base means that you don't lose your customers, or that you tailor the journey with them so that you're getting their buy-in as you're implementing your process of transformation. Then, of course, you need to make explicit your current business model. And that means being as honest as possible about what you're doing now and what inefficiencies exist, but also where are the opportunities. If you look back on what I was saying before about, before it gets to the customer, while the customer is using it, and what they do after it's been used. And then, of course, based on that, you would design and develop a circular economy business model, which obviously is based on your current model. It's just taking advantage of the opportunities and really designing out waste as much as possible. Now, the key thing, and if you do a little bit of research on this, you will see that imitation is the name of the game when it comes to getting ideas for circular economy. Most companies will look either in their own industry or even across industries. For example, a lot of companies get inspiration from the packaging industry because there's a lot of innovation going on there at the moment. And the idea is to really look and study those examples and see if there are ways for you to imitate it. Because eventually you will apply through the process of translating that and your own know-how into actual innovation. And of course, cannot say this enough, partnership building within the ecosystem. And then once you've done that at a smaller scale, you explore whether you're able to scale up. So, final remarks. Like I said at the start, few firms can really provide a full circular business model all by themselves. It requires knowing who acts in your network and how they can help you on that journey. It's also, and like I was saying before, the research shows us that there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of learning as you go, and the key is rapid feedback loops. So start small scale and then roll out at a larger scale once you see that that's working. And again, key driver is imitation. So just final points. Some of the resources I mentioned earlier. The Good Fashion Guide, if you're working in textiles, is a very good resource. It looks at how you can implement cradle to cradle manufacturing. And like I said, it breaks down the kinds of tech, the fibers, the dyes. It's just a good starting point. Then there are also, like, if you're looking at your own business model, there are lots of tools. I mean, the circular economy playbook was made for Finnish industries, so that the context there is missing a little bit, but they have developed a lot of tools which can help you ask yourself the right questions. So for example, there's a business model development toolkit, a value case tool, technology maturity assessment, and these are all templates that you can sort of run through and see if that helps you along your journey. And on that note, yeah, if you have any questions, I'm happy to try and answer them as best I can. Over to you, Dua.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. We received a couple of questions. Just let me remind you that may you please go to the interpretation section so that if someone speaks in Arabic, you can get the English translation. I personally got a couple of Arabic questions. We'll ask them to you. ولكن قبل ما أسأل أسئلتي اللي هي باللغة العربية حتكون في محمد السلوادي كان عنده سؤال لبياتريس. محمد بليز unmute واسأل سؤالك إذا عم تسمعني محمد، إذا لا بنتقل لسؤال تاني. أوكي، يبدو إنه محمد عنده مشكلة بالمايك أو مش سمعنا. لكن بياتريس السؤال الأول اللي وصلنا، هل يتم إدماج سياسات الاقتصاد الدائري بالعالم؟ إذا إيه بأي مطارح، وإذا لا ليش لا؟ شو العائق من إنه يصير في عنا سياسات اقتصاد دائري بكل البلدان؟
So if I understand the question correctly, it's if I understand the question correctly, it's is it important to have sort of a coherent circular economy policy globally?
The question is, are there places, countries in the world where the circular economy policies are being implemented? If yes, where? And if no, what are the obstacles? Why no? Why not?
Yeah, I mean, there are in certain countries, there's a lot more work. I think as a general trend, the key is in a lot of countries, the policy is to let the process be driven by the private sector. So it's about creating the conditions for an ecosystem to be created. And that means, for example, ensuring that, I mean, it's very consistent, for example, with the LevelUP project in the sense of looking at an entire value chain and trying to identify the actors to see how that they can best complement each other so that the total product or the sum is greater than the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think it depends on the country. Like I said, there are policies in place to really enable that ecosystem formation. The other thing is it's very important to have sort of how do I say this, an information ecosystem as well. And so governments can play a role in that, in making it as easy as possible for companies to be as transparent as possible in their supply chains, and also to make that information available open source or in a way that can be shared with companies that don't necessarily have the capacities to implement these things themselves. So to make those tools available to as many companies as possible. I hope that answers your question.
I think yes, but part of the question is, are there governments that have already started implementing these policies and helping companies and so on? Or it's just like it's still theoretical?
No, like I said, most of the time, if you look at examples now, it's really about making sure that you are enabling innovation and allowing companies themselves to take the risks and to find partners that can help them. So it's really about creating an enabling environment. Then there are, of course, as a consumer, there are certain governments that create incentives. I mean, there are some products that make more sense. In textiles, I wouldn't say that that's particularly prominent at the moment, but if you look at, for example, the automobile industry or even in phones, there is a much stronger presence because of the value and the nature of the resources being used.
Yeah, so we're still, maybe what you're saying or what you're trying to say is that we're still in the nurturing and empowering phase before having everything like go and become real. So the other question is a bit personal, and my friend is asking, what made you personally choose this ecospace or like this major to specialize in?
Why? Because it just seems to be a better way. I mean, this is a very personal answer as well. It just seems to be a better way of understanding the complexity that unfortunately a lot of businesses are choosing to ignore. It's not that the complexity isn't there, it's just they're choosing to either obscure it from your consumer. And unfortunately, consumers also need to be educated in a way that they understand that a product that is cheap or that is, you know, very easy to procure, they're not seeing the entire cost of that product when they're buying it. And so, you know, my decision to really pursue, to basically engage in the sector is about giving visibility to the hidden costs, but also the hidden opportunities that exist. And for me, it is really a logical development you know, as things become more volatile, like I said, even on an economic basis, there are arguments for sustainability. So there aren't no real compromises.
Yeah, thank you so much for your answer. That's really helpful and empowering at the same time.
Thank you.
Now let's check if Muhammad is with us. Okay, it looks like Muhammad, we lost Muhammad. Hazem, do you have any questions before I go ahead and continue sharing my questions?
لا شكرا دعاء.
اوكي، لكن بقدر احكي باللغه العربيه كرمال الكل يكون عم يسمعني بالعربي واسال اسئله اللي عم توصلني، الاسئله عم توصلني باللغه العربيه. اوكي تمام. احد الاسئله اللي وصلتني بياتريس انه مرات في بعض انواع الشركات ما فيها تترك المعامل تبعتها مكشوفه very transparent لدرجه انه يعرفوا شو عم يصير من جوا، لانه حسيت very easy to be copied، كثير سهل انه يكون ينسخوا ويتكرروا وحدا يقلدهم. فكيف فينا نلاقي التوازن ما بين انه نكون transparent بس بنفس الوقت ما نخبر عن الاوبريشنز تبعنا ونكشف اسرار الاوبريشنز تبعنا؟
Yeah, actually, that's an excellent question because, of course, you know, there is a very high cost to implementing innovation, and you want to make sure that you are taking advantage of that innovation and that brain power as long as possible. So when it comes to transparency, there are several different ways in which you can promote the transparency of your supply chain. You know, I think transparency of production is the part where I'm sensing that the question is probably centered. It's really not revealing necessarily the secrets of your production, but I think you can be transparent in the sense of either displaying the certifications. There are certifications about environmental management in production. I believe it's ISO 5001, but I will go and check that and confirm that with you. The other thing is that you can give visibility to the impacts of your processes. And make sure that they are confirmed by a third-party certifier. So, for example, if you have managed to implement a production process that radically saves on water, or you have a dyeing process if you're in textiles, that means that you're using a lot less, and the slurry at the end of it is much more usable in different forms. I understand that that's not something that you necessarily want to talk about, but the impact of that innovation is worth bringing attention to, because that is also part of what your consumer is looking for and what they'll make their decision off if they're basing their decision on sustainability criteria. So hopefully that answers your question a little bit. But yeah, and I think when it comes to giving visibility to your supply chain, that's just about saying that you are diligent and you are making sure that everyone you work with is following the same principles as you. And I'm not sure that you lose that much from that. But again, you know, that's borne out in practice, and I'd be excited to hear about how that goes for you.
شكرا جزيلا بياتريس على كل الأجوبة اللي جاوبت لنا إياها، صراحة جدا مفيدة، شخصيا كثير استفدت. حأترك بس كذا ثانية، إذا أي حدا عنده سؤال ثاني please unmute yourselves واسألوا. إذا حدا بيحب يبعث لي على الخاص مثل قبل شوي ويشرح لي وأنا أسأل، تمام ما في أي مشكلة. في سؤال. It's in English. Does the visibility help me in growing? I mean, in my opinion, being honest and clear, people will understand more. And can we consider it as a CA, as a competitive advantage? It's a question from Satanai.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of a point that I really wanted to emphasize in my presentation is the visibility is such a key part of growing, because you're putting in a lot of hard work into making sure that you at every stage are practicing the principles of circular economy, and your consumer will be very receptive to that. So it is a real selling point, and allows you also to charge a premium. I mean, you know, one person's premium is simply just reflecting the accurate costs in terms of environmental and social impact. But there are customers increasingly, and the same goes for investors, who are increasingly requiring that you disclose and are very diligent in how you bring attention to how you're producing your product. So I completely agree. The visibility, again, you need to understand your market and your consumer, but it will help you grow, and it allows you to communicate the value of your product.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Are there any more questions? وبتمنى ستناي إنه تكون جاوبت على سؤالك بياتريس. إذا ما عاد في أسئلة بدنا نقول شكرا كثير لبياتريس. كانت حصة تدريبية جدا مفيدة مثل ما قلت، شخصيا استفادت منها، لا سيما هي عم تحكي عن الماركتينج سلاش جروث، أو يعني التسويق وإنه تكبر المؤسسة من خلال السيركلر ايكونومي.
بالفعل دعاء، شكرا بياتريس. والآن رح يكون معنا فقرة حوارية مع أنس الشنطي، وعرض توضيحي بيشرح فيه معلومات مهمة عن طريق النجاح، وشو الصعوبات اللي ممكن تواجهكم وكيف ممكن تتخطوها.
يمتلك أنس خبرة بتزيد عن 20 سنة بتصميم اليو اي يو اكس والعلامات التجارية. أنس هو مؤسس منصة فند ليفي، واللي هي أول نموذج لعمليات التمويل الجماعي بالمنطقة. بالإضافة لتميزه بعالم البزنس يعني عالم الأعمال، تألق أنس كذلك بعالم الإنترنت، حيث أنه فاز ب4 جوائز ويبي، اللي هي جائزة دولية لتكريم التميز الافتراضي أو يعني التميز عبر الإنترنت، بيشارك فيها أكثر من 2000 خبير وخبيرة من حول العالم لحتى يربح بس 2 بكل مقعد أو بكل مجال. تعتبر جائزة ويبي أعلى وسام شرف افتراضي وتلقب بأوسكار الإنترنت، فمبروك أنس إنه عندك مش بس جائزة واحدة ويبي، أكثر من واحدة. وهذا أكيد. عفواً، عم تقول شي حازم؟
لا عم بشد على كلامك.
ثانك يو. وهذا مش كل شيء، أنس كمان عنده العديد من الإنجازات الأخرى اللي حيحكي لنا كيف وصل إلها وكيف ممكن نحن نتميز بمجالاتنا كمان. بياتريس حتكون عم تعرف عن أنس وتدير الحوار، فأنت معنا أنس؟
Yes.
أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا فيك أنس.
هلا.
لك أنت وبياتريس.
Thank you. You know, I think that was a more than enough of an introduction, but just in terms of, you know, maybe linking a little bit back to circular economy. And I'm really excited to hear from Anas because he represents the perfect bridge between circular economy and digitalization, and how you can use those two to respond to a very real problem, which is, you know, one of the big issues in the textile industry is the pre-consumer waste that is generated from creating products that don't respond to actual demand, but respond rather to forecasts and trends. So Anas will talk a little bit about what he's doing in this space, but also a little bit about his journey. And yeah, over to you, Anas. I'm very excited to hear about what you have to say.
Thank you, Beatrice, and thank you all for attending this session, and thank you also for the informative presentation and valuable information that you presented in the circular economy presentation, which is great. I'm going to share with you a screen of the presentation itself. So I'm going to do that right now. All right, let's do it. All right, let's start with the story. And this goes back in February 2016. And I decided to create a leather goods brand, and I called it Authentico. And I've been always fascinated by product design because I'm coming from the UX, UI kind of arena. And the part where I wanted to create a physical product was really fascinating for me. And also the part of the manufacturing process, how things are made, is really interesting. In addition, of course, to my passion with actually making leather products, and you know, the leather itself is just great. It smells great also. So I wanted to create a backpack that is basically made for designers, and so I called it the designer backpack. Now I was in Turkey at that time, and I had access to pretty much all the manufacturers are there, and I thought this was supposed to be easy, but anyway, I'll tell you about it more. So after really a year of hard work in making this backpack and since I didn't have enough money, I thought that it is the best way to cover the cost of the first production run of the backpack is to launch a crowdfunding campaign. And in March 2017, I have launched the designer backpack on Indiegogo. And Indiegogo is a marketplace for crowdfunding campaigns. And hopefully, after that, after launching the campaign, I would scale my brand and with other products in the same way. And so for those people who don't know what crowdfunding is, the long version of it is it's the process of funding the launch of an initial production or a new product by raising capital collectively from individuals or backers. In return, backers get a special deal on a limited or exclusive product that they expect to receive at a later stage. So that's the entire understanding of crowdfunding. But in short words, it is basically, asking money from people in advance to start your production and to basically cover the production cost of whatever you want to create. So now going back to the story, unfortunately, this is what happened. In April 2017, my campaign failed and I wasn't able to hit my goal. And my dream of launching the brand was literally over. So by then I realized that the problem wasn't actually the product. It was entirely about the marketing of the product way before its launch. And that's something that a lot of people don't do when they launch their campaigns online. So during this launch, I got an offer from a well-known marketing agency to support the brand. And basically they said, we'll give you $25,000 in ad spend to guarantee at least $400,000 in revenue. And I said, wow, this is great. But unfortunately, the deal was that they take 40% of whatever revenue I make, which means I do all the work for another probably a year or two and barely make any profit and maybe be in debt. So, and don't get me wrong, I believe in crowdfunding, but there must be a better way to do crowdfunding. And that led me to, after 2 years of hard work and thinking about how to solve a problem, in February 2019, I've launched Fundify, which is an independent crowdfunding and pre-order solution for agile, sustainable brands. And
sorry for interrupting, but are you sharing your screen because we can't see it?
Oh.
Yeah, بس القصة كتير بتحمس فما كان في قطعك قبل.
Really, yeah. Thank you for telling me because this is important. Okay, let me do that again.
Yes,
right.
please. I think now we can see it, but
you can see a portion of it, so I'm gonna make it larger.
Zoom out. Yes.
All right. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes, perfectly.
Very clear. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Shall I repeat the presentation? All right. We'll continue this way. So basically, 2 years after failing the campaign, and I'm going to show you a few photos since we haven't. So this is the backpack that I've designed, but unfortunately, the campaign that I've created, again, it failed, and that actually took me to another direction. And let's continue from here. So crowdfunding is a great way. It's to actually be a sustainable kind of company. So because crowdfunding allows you to assess the customer demand before you start production, which means that, essentially overproducing or having waste is almost guaranteed. So the fact that there is a major problem with crowdfunding that crowdfunding can potentially solve is overproduction. And when we're talking about overproduction, it is affecting our environment and obviously It is making our environment become hotter, and obviously the things that, as a result of our planet becoming hotter, you will have, you know, hurricanes and all of the terrible things that you're currently seeing right now. So crowdfunding allows you essentially to assess the demand and mitigate the risk of creating new products, and you'll be able to produce the right amount of the right product to the right customer on time, and also to be able to fund multiple production runs for your product. So every product that you design or you create, you'll be able to fund multiple runs of that product based on actual demand and not based on assumptions of what the market needs. And so you can avoid production waste and deliver products when they're actually seasonally appropriate. And now that means basically you are becoming a sustainable brand. So back to the story, we have partnered with a prestigious fashion council Germany, and we have also partnered with a couple of major platforms like Sketch, and Sketch basically connects brands with manufacturers, and the Gadget Flow. If everybody, a lot of people know Gadget Flow from their Discovery product platform. We have been also successful in hitting $1.2 million in pre-orders value for our customers. So we're pretty excited about that, and that should continue hopefully. And here's the important thing is what I learned from my experience of launching a leather goods brand, as well as you know, the crowdfunding situation. So I thought that initially that the journey to my goal was a simple problem solution situation, but it was much more like that than that. And in fact, the reality is different. So what I want to tell you is that you will actually face a lot of problems from all directions. And this is the reality of things. So if your goal is bigger than yourself, and this is very important, you are most likely to hit your goal. If your goal is to serve yourself, you know, you're heading towards nowhere. But if you are trying to help people and solve a problem for them, then you're doing great. But remember that problems are actually guidelines for success, and they tell you what not and what to do, and what you really need to work on. So on the other hand, having no problems basically means you're having a much bigger problem. So you need to have problems to understand where your direction is. And in my case, for example, the problems I went through crowdfunding my backpack led me to a bigger opportunity. And so I shifted my focus from solving my own problem with leather manufacturing to solving a bigger problem for people. And that's how it got started with Fundify, which is the crowdfunding solution I started. So my advice to you is, in your startup journey, I mean, keep an eye on problems, you know, just watch for problems because they can be opportunities. Here are a few other things that that I've learned along the way with those experiences is that, first of all, you need to really know your goals very well to start with, and you need to control what you are doing. You need to understand that you do have control, and because nothing works automatically and nothing moves unless you move it. You cannot blame people on, you know, this happened and that happened, and you know, feeling like desperate. It doesn't work like that. You need to be in control of everything that you do, and you are basically responsible for everything that happens in your business. And you cannot blame anybody else, as you know. That's the idea. So you also have to be humble, and humble with people you work with, humble with your with the manufacturers you want to work with, humble with your customers. You have to be honest and clear, and know exactly what you want to tell people. Clarity is very important when it comes to communicating what you want to do with your manufacturers or with your team or with all stakeholders that you interact with. You have to also be patient and empathetic with people and kind to others. So one of the fundamental problems is also, you have to face problems, and because problems will happen, and you just need to, take it easy with the problems. Just not avoid them too much. Just say, okay, this is a problem and I need to deal with it. So when you have problems, just prioritize them and, solve them accordingly. And you need to find solutions for yourself, and you need to do that by yourself. So otherwise, solutions will find you. So that's the reality of things. So, and also you need to be passionate and love what you do, because it will take you places. The other points I'd like to point out is that if you don't believe in yourself, believe me, no one will believe in you. And also, one of the things that I used to do is to keep a journal of everything my thoughts, my ideas, my insights, and really plan ahead, even if the plan doesn't go as you planned it. But it's just a good practice of writing down everything that you do, which is great. And one essential part of your success is to visualize what you have, visualize your future, visualize your product. It will save you so much time and effort. And it will, when you visualize something, you will be pulled towards it. So that's a good practice. And remember that you are in the business of creating experiences for other people. So make sure you deliver your best experience to your customers. And remember also that work starts after the sale, doesn't end, because there's a lot of people who think that, when I sold my product, and that's the end of the story. But that's the beginning of the story with your customer, and you need to keep that customer even after sale. So, and your business also isn't only creating great products and great services, although that may be the case, but your business is what makes it work, which is essentially people. So at the end, I would say, love thy customer, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Anas. That was really great. And again, the idea of work starting after the sale, just to draw back that connection to circular economy, customer loyalty, and what you do to increase the customer's experience of the product is so important to them coming back and make it possible to, continue in the certain business model that you have implemented. So I think that's a very important message to nail home. I was wondering if you could just tell us, if let's say I was a company that was producing a line of clothing, what does my interaction and my journey with your company look like?
Well, we have developed a solution that basically sits on top of a Shopify platform. Shopify is essentially an e-commerce platform that you can start immediately your selling products online. And I would go for Shopify all in without any hesitation, because not only because I'm a partner of Shopify, but because it is a great way to kickstart your business. So that's one way to do it. And so our application sits on top of Shopify as a plugin, and you can essentially start your own crowdfunding scene through that plugin. So it's an independent. So the idea of Fundify is a democratized kind of process of independently crowdfunding your campaigns, instead of going to essentially marketplaces where they take a percentage of your revenue. So you do that, and you just pay a subscription, and that's it. You can launch your own products, which is proven to be quite an effective way to scale the brand and minimize production waste.
Yeah, for sure. And also to communicate the quality in a way that you can control so much more powerfully. Just the last question before we we're running out of time, but maybe if the audience has a question as well, is just how, very briefly, your experience of looking for partners, because I'm sure many people are wondering what the best way to do that is. So what was your experience of that?
Well, you have to be patient and you have to communicate with people as much as possible. I mean, there's no way around it. It's just hard work. You just have to contact a lot of people in your area. You just you need to have that kind of an understanding where you're going and connect with the people who are going in the same direction. And then you will align with those people, and then they will connect with you because they have the same goals and aspirations, and you know, they have the same vision for the future, and therefore you will fit in naturally into that, and they will connect with you and they will love you, and you know, and the whole story begins with usually a simple email. Just send them an email and they will reply to you, and they will see if you have value to add.
Thank you for that. Maybe if there's a question from the audience in the minute that we have left, unfortunately.
Yeah, sure. Let me check. I can't see any questions in the chat box. بعد ماني قادرة أشوف أي سؤال بالchat box. بس بليز اللي عنده أي سؤال أو تقول لي.
دعاء، في سؤال وصلني مباشرة. عم بسأل كيف أنا عندي أنا شوبيفاي ما بعرف أستعمله. أنا بعرف إنه في أمازون وعلي بابا وإي باي. مناسبين أستعملهم كبداية ولا لا لازم أدخل بشوبيفاي أكتر؟
لا، أنا personally I would go for Shopify because it's independent, because you are trying to build a community of people and customers, and this is crucial for your success because you don't know the customers who are on Amazon. Amazon is not going to give you details of those customers. So if you're trying to build a brand, go with Shopify without any hesitation. And through Shopify, of course, that you can push your products to eBay, you can push your products to Amazon, you can push your products to anywhere simultaneously, and that's fine.
Okay. شكرا أنس. حاليا ما عندنا أي أسئلة ثانية. أنس نتشكرك، شكرا على وقتك. سمعناك تقريبا 15 دقيقة بس غير كافية لنسمع مشوارك كامل. لأي شخص حابب يتواصل مع أنس بيقدر يبعث لنا وبنشارككم معلومات الاتصال فيه لا تسألوا عن مشاريعكم أكثر. شكرا أنس. شكرا. والآن حصتنا التدريبية الثانية مع إليزابيثا فرناندو، وهي مستشارة وخبيرة دولية في مجال التجارة والتنمية الصناعية. تمتلك إليزابيثا أكثر من 25 عام من الخبرة كمديرة تطوير أعمال على المستوى العالمي، حيث استطاعت أن تطور القدرات والحماس بالعمل في بيئة متعددة الثقافات واللغات. وهي أيضاً خبيرة في تطوير وتعزيز وتنفيذ السياسات والاستراتيجيات الصناعية والتجارية المبتكرة. نترككم مع إليزابيثا. Elizabeth, can you hear me?
Yeah. Good morning to everybody, and thanks for the masterclass. I heard a very interesting. Yeah, it's okay now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, it's a great honor to be here. So welcome to everybody, and I want to thank all my colleagues for this very interesting panel we have today. I would explain today how design thinking can impact on business, on new ideas, and this is one of the most let's say interesting, I believe, process that a new company or a consolidated company can do to jump in a worldwide scenario and in the international market. So I would like to share now the presentation. Which is, is it working?
Not yet.
Why? Okay.
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Okay, so that's very good. Let me first give you a brief definition of what design thinking is. Design thinking is, let's say, a process, is a popular definition by this concept by Tim Brown, that say that the design thinking match people need, and is very popular, this definition, with that is technological feasible and what is viable business strategy can convert in customer value and market opportunity. So I would like also to say that design thinking is a non-linear interactive process that team use to understand user, challenge an assumption, redefine problem, and create an innovative solution to prototype and test. Design thinking involves 5 steps, emphasize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And it's most useful to tackle problems that are undefined, ill-defined, and unknown. So let's say that the aim of this masterclass will be to explore our innate abilities to see different solutions of problems that we have in our company. And you have probably heard about that necessity is the mother of invention. From many personal experience, and from my personal experience, I think that mother of the necessity is a mother of invention, but the father is the opportunity. So let's say that necessity and opportunity are the 2 pillars for the development of creative thinking. And they have to, we must relate it to each other to create an innovative solution. So I would like also to say that design thinking has an attribute that are very clear to define the whole process for the SMEs. Ambiguity first. We have to accept that things can be unclear and undefined when we work on problem, and that answer might be not obvious and known. We have to be very collaborative and working together in our company or to collaborate with the colleague at every stage of the process. Then we have to be very, to be curiosity and be motivated to ask questions and to open our mind to find a new solution of our problem. And then we have to create empathy, be able to understand things from user point of view. This is very, very important. And the other 3 points is that we have to have an holistic approach to things, being able to see the larger picture and looking at the situation and the problem for multiple angles. We have to be very interactive. We have to create a circle of, we have to interact each other and to improve our idea in the process and to embrace the idea of all the team in order to come up with the best solution. And then we have to have an open-minded, to be open-minded and embrace wild ideas. So we don't, it's very important when we start a design thinking approach to not jump to a conclusion and adopt an experimental approach to find the best solution. So this slide, in my point of view, is exactly summarize what design thinking is. This design thinking is making think that people want. So the experience that we create with the design thinking process is that the company has to be very focused on the user experience. I think we have a video that I would like to launch. Yeah, probably is the link of the video. Can you start with the video at page 3, or I have to do? Hello?
Please, Elizabeth, you have to stop sharing your screen.
Can you launch the video?
Elizabeth, can you press to stop sharing your screen?
Okay.
Please.
Just a second.
Shifa, you can share it as well. Like enable sharing while someone else is sharing.
Okay. Hello?
Just press on the stop sharing your screen up the window, because I cannot open extra. Okay, that's right. Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
A long, long time ago, if humans wanted to move something, we had to carry it. And as time went on, we were able to solve this problem and millions of others. In life, we're always bumping into new problems. And while we have the desire to solve them, it's often hard to find the right solution or even know where to start. That's where design thinking comes in. Design thinking is a process that seeks to solve complex problems by a long, long time ago, in life, we're always bumping into new problems. And while we have the desire to solve them, it's often hard to find the right solution or even know where to start. That's where design thinking comes in. Design thinking is a process that seeks to solve complex problems by approaching it from the user's perspective. It also aims to turn your ideas into tangible, testable products as quickly as possible. The design thinking framework can be drilled down into 3 distinct phases: immersion, ideation, and implementation. But if we zoom in a little bit, these phases can be broken down into 5 actionable stages that make up the entire design thinking process: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. In the empathize stage, you'll get to know your target audience and paint a clear picture of who the users are, what challenges they face, and what they need. This can be achieved through interviews, user testing, surveys, basically by talking to people and understanding how they think, act, and feel. Based on what you learn, you'll then define your problem statement. When creating your problem statement, focus on the user's needs over the business goals. Keeping it human-centered is the theme here. This problem statement will act as your North Star. If you start to trail off or get lost, just look back to the problem statement to refocus. With our problem statement defined, we're ready to ideate. Keep in mind, innovation is rarely born in isolation, so don't fly solo. Get up from your desk, cubicle, or spaceship, gather some key individuals from other teams, and collaborate. The name of the game is quantity over quality. So think outside of the box and explore new angles. There are many ideation techniques to get you and your team started. A great reference is our Design Thinking Handbook by Eli Woolery. Check it out at designbetter.com. Next stop, prototyping. Prototypes come in all shapes and sizes, from basic paper models to interactive digital mock-ups. The goal is to have something tangible that can be tested on real people. Getting your prototype into the hands of real users will give you great insight on if the solution you provided is valid or if it needs some more work. Based on their feedback, you can make changes and improvements before spending the time and money building the real thing. Although these steps appear to be sequential, keep in mind, design thinking is less linear and more iterative. At each stage, you'll most likely discover new things that require you to go back and repeat a previous step. And there you have it, design thinking in a nutshell. Now get out there and start applying design thinking to your work today. You'll be glad you did. For more information on design thinking, head on over to envisionapp.com/inside design, and we'll see you in the next video.
All right, thank you. I come back. Just a second. Yeah. Now I want to share again. It's a little bit complicated. Are you in?
We are
Yes,
seeing
we
your
can see your screen.
screen, desktop.
I would like to reshare the document. New share. Yeah. New share. Okay. Is it okay? Oh,
Yes, yes, we see it.
okay, very good. So again, one of the, I mean, from my point of view, I mean, from my experience, one of the most difficult process in a new company, a new startup, is how to reach the final user and how to get in the market. So this is the main point that every company need to understand before starting any kind of process and develop a new product or new services. So design thinking is helping, is the right process that really can help to come up with innovative solution when the innovation, it's really the main point that a company is, the main goal that a company has to achieve when is approaching a competitive scenario and when is want to export in all over the world. So let's say that as Steve Jobs says, design is not just what it look like and feel like. Design is how it works. Many people think that design thinking is confused with virtual design. Of course, this is not. Is a process that that really want to come up with solution. So this is the key point of the design thinking process. Actually, design thinking is less about thinking and more about doing. Design thinking is for everybody. Tim Brown believed that design thinking technique and strategy of design belong at every level of business. So design thinking is not only for designer, but of course for entrepreneurs, creative employees, freelancer and leader who seek to infuse design thinking into every level of organization, product or service in order to drive new alternatives for business and society. Design thinking is essential a problem-solving approach which combine a user-centered perspective with the rational and analytic research with the goal of creative, innovative solution. So the key element is that it's people-centered, highly creative, interactive, and hands-on. So this are the 5 stages of design thinking project, which is empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Empathize, this is the first step. Every company, every people that really want to approach the design thinking project has to understand the user need and the problem. Believe me that it's not an easy job because understand the user need. It's the most difficult point that probably we faced when we decide to jump in a new sector or a new project, in a new service, and implement a new business. So this has to be defined very carefully. And how we can do that? We have to work in team all together in a company and observe and define the problem we are facing in our company and how to solve it to enter properly in the market with the right product or the right solution. Then we have to ideate and think of solution to each aspect of the problem. So ideate a new services or a new product is a matter of, again, end user research. So we have to understand very deeply which are our customer and the need of our customer, and how we can organize a better and ideate a better solution for our end user. Then we have to prototype. Prototype is the development of the solution, and can be, prototype means that we develop physically the solution, the product or the services, and then we try to understand if it is the right solution or not. And then we have the final step, which is the test. And the test is the other hand of the other hand, let's say, process that it's extremely important, because the test is related to our customer and stakeholders. So when we test a product or we define services, then we have to understand if the test is matching the user need and how our stakeholder and the impact that this final solution have on our stakeholder. So emphasize means that we have to really to be very focused on the user need. So it's the time to accumulate the information gathered during the emphasize stage. You then analyze your observation and synthesize them to define the core problem you and your team have identified. These definitions are core problem statement. You can create personas to help keep your effort human-centered before proceeding to ideation. Define means that state your user need and problem. Now we are ready to generate idea. The solid background and knowledge from the first two phases means that you can start to think outside the box, look the alternative ways to view the problem, and identify innovative solution to the problem statement you have created. Brainstorming is particularly useful here. Yeah, this is a very important point, because again, companies, internal brainstorming is one of the assets on design thinking project, because sometimes and many times, a company used to have separate brainstorming among sales department, marketing department. This is one of the most wrong things that a company can do. If really we want to launch an innovative ideas, an innovative product, we have to make a deep brainstorming. Hello, you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. A deeply brainstorming with the company, within the team of the company. Then we have the step of ideate, which is the challenge assumption and create ideas. Also, create ideas, it's not an easy job, because of course that means that we have probably to revise our company strategy, because design thinking strategy is strictly connected with the company strategy that a company has. So when we want to launch a new product, means that we have to be very creative in the process of the ideation of the new product, and also to understand the segment of the market that we want to cover. So the ideate a new product is a complex process that takes time, and takes a lot of time in researching the positioning of the product in the market, the target countries we want to achieve. So it's a step that takes a certain time and has to be elaborated and done among the team of the companies. This is the prototype. The prototype step is the experimental phase. The aim of this is to identify the best possible solution for each problem found. So your team should produce an expensive scaled down version of the product. This is just to test and to investigate if your ideas is good or not, because sometimes another point of a very important point of the design thinking is that we have to be open, and also if we fail, we have to restart again the process, because this is part of the process. So when we prototype, we have to understand at the first level if our product or our service is in the right position in the market. So we have to be very careful in investigating this with our potential client, stakeholder, and customer. So then we come up to the final step of the process, which is the test. Designer or evaluator rigorously test the complete product or services using the best solution and identified during the prototype phase. Even during this phase, alteration or redefinement are made in order to rule out problem solution and arrive as a deep understanding of the product and its user as possible. So also this, it's a very, very important step of the project, because we test our final product, our service. So it's highly recommended to test before with the customer, with the consolidate customer that we have, and then try to understand how the new product and the new services, which kind of impact has in your new client. And this is especially related to the marketing and the communication campaign that the company will set up to launch the new product. So to summarize again, the 5 steps: emphasize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And then we enter in detail of the design thinking process, which is the 7 factors. And I would like to launch the video, but I have to start. Can you launch the video?
Yes, please.
Design Thinking and Innovation at Apple, a Harvard business case that won 2013 ECCH Case Award. The authors of the business case are Harvard Business School professor Stephen Tomke and independent researcher Barbara Feinberg. The summary and the presentation are created by Li Wei, Technology Commercialization Manager from Agency for Science, Technology and Research, Singapore. The full business case is available from Harvard Business Review. In 2012, Apple became the most valuable public traded company in history with $600 share price, $620 billion market capital, and $100 billion annual sales. Apple's success was not just the result of strategic moves or innate sense of market timing. It is a surprising consistency in the way the company worked. Simply put, the Apple way. First, design thinking. Those of us on the original Macintosh team were really excited about what we were doing. The result was that people saw a Mac and fell in love with it. There was an emotional connection. That, I think, came from the heart and soul of the design team. Bill Atkinson, member of Apple Macintosh development team. In the mid-1970s, computers were typically housed in discrete locations and only used by specialists. The notion of computer as a tool for individual work was unimaginable in the 1970s. To help people love their equipment and the experience of using it, the level of complexity needed to be reduced dramatically. Apple's product starts with design, from people's need and want. The design of the product is not limited by technology. The engineers are pushed to use the same kind of creativity and innovation to make it happen. Design is very well thought through. It is beyond fashion. The capacity and technology to build it is not commoditized, and no compromise for the functionalities. This is design thinking. The combination of user desirability, technology possibility, and market viability. Smallest of details are scrutinized, not just the appearance of the product, but also its functions, features, and packaging. The design team kept on going deep until they found the key underlying principle of a problem, then built on it. Design is not just what it looks like and feels like. Design is how it works. That simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Second, strategy and execution. You can see a lot just by observing. Yogi Berra, Major League Baseball player and manager. Apple's history began in 1976. It launched the first personal computer, Apple II, in 1978. In 1981, IBM entered the market with its PC that can be cloned. Since 1985, Apple's market share kept declining. The board of Apple axed Steve Jobs. In the following 11 years, products and projects at Apple proliferated in consequence of various strategies, and many of them failed. The technology department process became more traditional and resembled approaches found at other companies. Process makes you more efficient, but innovation comes from people calling each other at 10:30 at night with a new idea. It comes from saying no to 1,000 things to make sure we don't get on the wrong track or try to do too much. By Steve Jobs. Everything changed after Steve Jobs returned to Apple in 1997. Decisions were made to achieve the excellence in execution. Stopped licensing program, eliminated 70% of new projects. Product line was reduced from 15 to only 3. Website was launched for direct sales. Sophisticated marketing kept product development complete secret. Shut down facilities and moved them abroad. Inventory was reduced from months to a few days. Apple also adopted the platform strategy for its products. They designed the initial product as a platform with an architecture that accommodated the development and the production of the derivative products. Customers' experience was integrated into Apple's product design and development. A lot of it empirically drives with iterative customer involvement. Apple worked intimately with manufacturers and assured that their product be completely attuned to customers. Apple's product always evolves. The importance of design is a motivation to continued innovation rather than a static approach that assumes a single conclusion. Third, CEO as chief innovator. The really great person will keep on going and find the key underlying principle of the problem and come up with a beautiful, elegant solution that works. Steve Levy, author of The Perfect Thing. Company founders essentially imprint their organizations with their own personality characteristics, and Apple Jobs is no exception. Steve Jobs and Apple seem like interchangeable terms. Steve Jobs' drive for perfection was Apple's drive for beautiful, elegant products and its superior operations. Steve Jobs' vision held that Apple's products were to be personal tools for individuals instead of enterprise solution. Steve Jobs also had total hands-on involvement in decision-making, from strategy to product and service design to packaging. Fourth, bold business experimentation. The greatest artists like Dylan, Picasso, and Newton risked failure. And if we want to be great, we've got to risk it too. Steve Jobs. When everyone was moving online, Apple decided to move into retail and created every Apple store with the same painstaking focus on details. Against conventional wisdom of open platform, collaboration, community design, transparency, Apple insisted to develop and integrate its own hardware, software, and keep product launches secret. Apple was also constantly learning, adapting, and evolving, from the design of array of colors to black and white color theme, from the closed developer community to the open developer platform, from no compatibility for other OS to Windows compatibility. In summary, the root of Apple's success was a set of principles with a deep commitment to great products and services at its core. Design thinking, clear development strategy and execution, its CEO as chief innovator, and the rational courage to conduct bold business experiments. For more presentations about innovation management and technology commercialization, please visit www.inodiary.org.
So yeah, I share again. Yeah, the 7 factors. So I think that it's really very clear how design thinking can impact when the process and the product is still focalized. Sorry, just a second. The dog. It's focalized. Yeah, when the product is completely focalized on the end user. So so the 7 factors that influence user experience: useful, usable, findable, credible, desirable, accessible, and valuable. So let's see all these points. The success of a product depends on more than utility and usability alone. Products which are usable, useful, findable, accessible, credible, and valuable, and desirable are much more likely to succeed on the marketplace. So useful, it is very clear that when we design a product or a services that is useful, this is a very precise element that will give us our potential customers. So this is an experience that we have to create for our end user, because it is essential to have an innovative, to give an innovative solution or proposal for the market. So if a product is not useful to someone, why would you want to bring it to the market? So if it has no purpose, is unlikely to be able to complete for attention alongside a market full of useful products. So this is a very important point. Usability is concerned with enabling user to achieve their objective with the product effectively and efficiently. So this is another very important point that we have to take in consideration, like findable. Findable refers to the idea that the product must be easy to find, and in instance of digital information product, the content within them must be easy to find too. This is a very important point because using digital marketing, of course, the e-commerce and all the tools that we have to market our product globally, findable is one of the assets when a company start a new product or marketing a new product or a new services. Then we have credibility. Credible. We must create a solution that are credible for our end user. And this is related to the ability to the user to trust in the product that you have provided, not just what it does the job is supposed to do, but also what it will last for a reasonable amount of time, and what the information provide with inaccurate and fit for purpose. Then has to be desirable. So this is the other, but product, desirable product. This is Apple is an example. I mean, I think the big one and the most. I mean, they create a desirable product, and they work so much hard in branding their product that now, this is. In my point of view, this is the example for all the companies from startup to big companies, that if you really want to create a product that goes to the market, you have to see at your final user. So this is something that I repeat in every contest. And also I experience in many time when I built a new brand and I enter in the market with new solution and new services. So desirability is conveyed in design through branding, images, identity, aesthetic, and emotional design. the more desirable product is, the more likely is that the user has the will to take and to create. I mean, and about it creates desire in other user. Then accessible is also very important, because accessibility is now it is an add value for all kind of product or services or experience that we are putting on the market. And valuable is the main asset. Of course, to create a valuable product is not an easy job. Again, you have to work a lot on the experience, to visualize the marketing experience that you want to create in your customer. So you have to investigate a lot in your competitors, because of course competitors, we are full of competitors when we are approaching a new product or ideas. So a comparative analysis on this is very, very important when we want to create a valuable product. So the product or the service must deliver value. It must deliver value to the business which create it and in the user who buy or use it. We all should bear in mind that value is one of the key influence and purchase decision. And I want to stress again, especially for the startup, because for new entrepreneurs that just approach the market, be very target on the value. The value, of course, of the product or of the service is not only the value that the tangible value, but it's especially the intangible value that you can create. So this is a very important asset of your product. How much the product is sustainable, which material you use to produce it, and how you fit the product in the market, the way you market the product, and the way you communicate your marketing campaign. So these are tangible. So we have tangible and intangible assets when we are talking about value of the product or the services. Then the 10 principles that makes design thinking successful. Are you there?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, very good. Well, explore the user and his need intensively. The first step in design thinking is to empathize with user to find out what the real problem is and what the user needs are. In practice, too little attention and time is usually given to this step in the company. This is, again, one of the most important points in design thinking process. So please, when you start exploring this stage, analyze, emphasize with the user, with the end user, and try to understand your positioning, your segment in the market, and the problem that your user need have. Because sometimes the company is more focused on the technological solution of the product or the services, but not on the user need. And it is very clear from my point of view and from my experience that if you don't do that, you can have, you can produce, have the most important technology you have in your hand. But if you are not able to communicate this to your end user and to your customer, that you don't have a lot, because you have just 50%, you solve the 50% of the problem. And the design thinking process is exactly focalized on the problem solution. every company has problem in entering in the market. So it's not enough, now it's very popular to launch a marketplace, e-commerce in the marketplace, e-commerce, and to promote through digital, which is of course extremely important. But from the other point of view is that the first big effort that a company or a new startup has to do before launching any product or services in the market is end user. Understand the problem and the need of your end user. This is something that has to be done very deeply. I would also, I like very much this sentence of Albert Einstein. If I had only 1 hour to save the world, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and only 5 minutes finding the solution. So defining the problem is the key point to understand how the solution can come up, the right solution can come up. So then point 2, put together a heterogeneous team. The team is, design thinking approach, which is a design strategy of your company, is for a human-centered approach. So put together the team, 5-6 people in your company from different experience around the table, and just start to evaluate and to understand the problems and to come up with solution from different perspective and from different skill. In this process, you have to be very open mind. There is no leader in a process like that, because people have to be very free. They have to feel free to say to propose any kind of solution around the table, and without any competition, but only with the aim to create the proper environment to find out the good solution and for the customer and for the end user. Then point 3, avoid the outsourcing process. During the design thinking process, it is extremely important that the project, that all the steps will be done inside the company and not in outsourcing, because design thinking is about working together on the project. So all team members are involved in each step and play a very important role by giving their point of view and their solution to come up with the final product for the market. Provide a mobile workplace and sufficient materials. A creative process needs an environment in which idea can flourish and prototype can be developed. In design thinking project, you often approach the topic very playfully. For example, situation in the form of story, of sketches that you have seen at the customer or user are replay. So this is looking for having a place where to start this process within the company member is another very important point. And then at the end of the presentation, I will show you an history case on that. And so put your effort also to find the proper place where people can imagine, ideate, create, and come up with the final solution. So point 5, have the courage to fail. Fail early and fail often. This is design thinking is based on an interactive process. If you start all over again after the customer feedback of your prototype, you are on the right track. you have saved a lot of time and money because you have already found out before the implementation of your idea and it fail on the and that it will fail on the market. With design thinking, you need the courage to go through several loops. Innovation needs failure. You learn from feedback and improve through repetition. So this is also the very important point. As I mentioned before, we have to fail. And during the process, when we prototype and we have to check our solution with our customer first, our stakeholder, because the process involves all the customer, all the stakeholder. So when we prototype for the first time and we test, we have to test our solution with our customer. And in case this does not work, we have to restart the process again. But this is what design thinking need to come up with the right solution. Then point 6, allow even crazy idea to happen. The last two step of the design thinking process are to generate ideas and develop prototype from them, which are then tested on the customer side. The more idea, the better, always applied with regard to idea generation. So again, be experimental, think outside the box, and allow to crazy idea to come because everything is possible. Yeah, another problem that we faced a lot, especially with the experienced SMEs and companies, not with the startup, because the startup most of the time has very strong idea, very innovative idea, but when we are facing with consolidate the company, that the situation is different. And sometimes they are very focused, again, more in the technology than on the market. So they don't want to, to break the box and to come up with the innovative idea. And that's why the design process, and exactly at this point, the design process can help this kind of company to go out from their consolidate idea and open their mind to create a new solution. Then point 7, design thinking doesn't mean sitting in a room all day discussing colorful post-it. Rather than it's about thinking with your hand and developing prototype as quickly as possible. Prototype means making your idea come to life, so you can learn from it. It's a matter of building a model that of what you think your concept should look or feel like in order to get feedback and to improve change or possibility even to abandon your idea. So yeah, we have to be again very open and use do a lot, because design thinking is not imagine again, but is a prototype and test. The two last steps are very important, and all the process is focalized to get these two last steps and to test the final solution with your customer and end user. Yeah. Point 8, don't fall in love with your first prototype. This is one of the errors that most of the companies incur, that they fall in love with their first prototype, especially when they haven't created anything with their hand for a long time. However, the first prototype is usually not the best solution. So again, if it's not the best solution, burn your prototype and start again, because you are in the right track. This is the process of design thinking. If you understand that, don't be fixed. Don't be so. Don't be so focalized on your first prototype, because you have to check with your end user first, and then with your stakeholder and your community, because you have to understand if really your first prototype is the right one for the market. Then point 9, put the function of your prototype in the foreground. If you test a prototype that is beautiful to look at, there is a risk that the test user will evaluate the design and not the functionality. So in design thinking project, prototype are all about building the most valuable product or service for end user. Point 10, openness to result for the best solution is an important principle in design thinking. Many innovations fail on the market because they do not bring add value to the customer. To avoid this, design thinking shifts the focus from a purely technical solution to a human solution. Design thinking is an innovation approach that focuses on customer need and gradually approaches the best solution via interactive feedback loops. This allowed user need to be identified, innovative ideas to be evaluated, or solution for complex interdisciplinary problem to be found. Design thinking is a method of meeting people's need and desire in a technological, feasible, and strategical, mindful way. This is the Tim Brown sentence. So this is the last sentence that the number 10, I believe, is the most important one, because again, design thinking put the technical solution with the human solution. And this is exactly, of course, what naturally people do, because now we describe the process, but normally if you, if your mind is open, and if you understand the market, and if you are entering with the digital tools we have right now available in all the market, it is clear that every company that really want to enter and to have a very and to brand their product correctly, they have to combine their technical solution with the human solution. And when these two assets are together, then we can really create an innovative approach that focus on customer need. Customer is our first target. And believe me, that is not an easy job, because again, sometimes we are more focused on our technological solution than on our customer. So it's a big effort that the company has to do internally. And of course, to do that, the entrepreneurs has to have a vision of that, and need, of course, a couple of need help also from expert, design process expert that can lead the company in this direction. So last but not least, just a few words on the role design thinking plays in sustainability and corporate social responsibility. Design a better future. All company we have to focus on making a transition to low carbon, resilient, and sustainable business model. So when we are looking for a new business model to launch, we have to take in consideration that sustainability now and in the future will be a very important asset that we have to take in our mind. If, for example, for the fashion industry, if you use sustainable materials, then and you can communicate this, and you communicate this value, this asset to your customer, that probably you can get a big success, because of course using a sustainable material, especially for the fashion industry, it's extremely important. So take in consideration that sustainability is an asset in every business model you want to launch. Use design thinking for sustainable innovation. Sustainability is an increasingly asset for businesses. There is a growing will to pay attention to our consumption habits in order to reduce our impact on the environment. So the design thinking plays an important role in this transition, because it's able to integrate this concept at the start of the project. If you start a project from scratch, if you start a new business, or if you prototype a new product, this is extremely important and is an asset for your company, and especially is an asset for your end user. So how design thinking plays a role in sustainability and corporate social responsibility? One of the best examples of design thinking at work is human-centered design. Human-centered design specifically addresses human want and need. So good design thinking process aim to serve and address unmet human need over the long term, rather than focus on band-aid solution. So making something usable again and again can help it to be sustainable and innovative. Increasing the impact of social engagement. Design thinking is a powerful tool also in this direction, to increase the impact of social engagement by working closely with your client and with client consumer. Design thinking allows an impact solution to social problem to bubble up from below rather than being imposed from the top. Social challenge requires systematic solutions that are grounded in the client or customer need. This is where many approach found, but this is where design thinking, a new approach to create solution excel. So let's say that this is extremely important, because a social challenge exactly require a solution that come up from client and customer. So when we start designing something new, a new product or a new way to do business, so a new business model, we have to take in consideration all these factors to come up with solution that really has a positive impact and the social engagement in the community. And this is exactly what the social economy is doing, and the social economy is right now is booming, is increasing in all over the world. So we have to take in consideration this point very carefully. So last sentence that I like very much to highlight is that logic will get you from A to B, imagination will take you everywhere. So this is the last sentence of Albert Einstein, and which I totally agree. And I would like to show you the last video, which is, now I stop the share. Yeah. Can you, yeah.
The British are coming! The British are coming! Wait, it's the Italians. The Italians are coming!
The 5-passenger Fiat 500L. The revolution just got bigger.
This is going to be so much better than the tea party.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining this video, which is, I really love this this video because yeah, it's exactly what design thinking is. When you really want to come up with a new product and innovative ideas, you have to look at your end user. And in this video, which is done by Fiat, you can see that how the brand is developed, how the experience is customized oriented, is customer oriented. And again, I invite all of you, especially within the framework of LevelUP initiative, to imagine your innovative idea, to create and to imagine, to develop new business in a very innovative way, using the 5 steps of design thinking as an asset to build a better business. Thank you for today. And if you have any question, of course, I'm available. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for this great masterclass. للأسف مش رح نقدر نجاوب على أسئلتكم مباشرة لأننا ملحوقين بالوقت. بس إن شاء الله رح نبعث لكم الإجابات. إليزابيث رح تجاوب عليهم، رح نبعث لكم إياهم على الإيميل. وكمان بحب أحكي لكم إنه خلال الجيت 2 و 3 إليزابيث رح تكون معنا بماستر كلاسز كمان لتخبرنا أكثر عن التفكير التصميمي. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for this great master class. Thank you.
Bye.
دعاء. اوكي، بالختام شكرا لكم جميعا. بالختام رح يكون عندنا فقرتنا الاخيره رح نسمع فيها قصص نجاح لسيدات اردنيات، قصص ملهمه. القصص هاي رح تخلينا نفكر انه كيف بلشوا وكيف قدروا يتخطوا كل الصعوبات اللي واجهتهم خلال رحلتهم، وكيف صار التغيير ووين وصلوا. تقدروا تتابعوا الفيديوهات معنا. شكرا لكم.
مرحبا، أنا فيروز عنبتاوي، أسست مشروع فيروز بيكر قبل 2 سنين. هي منتجات العناية بالبشرة بالعسل ومنتجات النحل. بدت فكرة المشروع من والدي، هو نحال بيآمن بفوائد العسل الشفائية والعلاجية، ومن هون هو ألهمني إني أدرس صيدلة. بمساعدة والدتي بالتجربة والبحث والتطوير قدرت إني أصيغ منتجات للعناية بالبشرة، وهلأ بدعم من العيلة صار عندي صالة عرض للمنتجات ومشغل. هلا الفريق اللي بيساعدني هو مكون من افراد عائلتي واصدقائي. بالنسبه للمنتجات اللي احنا بننتجها هي منتجات كلياتها طبيعيه، من العسل، شمع العسل، العكبر، وحبوب اللقاح، النباتات الطبيعيه والزيوت الطبيعيه، وكلياتها بتكون خاليه من المواد الكيميائيه الضاره. هلا هي بتكون عباره عن صابون للوجه، صابون للجسم، مرطب للشفاء، مقشر للشفاء، مقشر للجسم، زبده الجسم، املاح الاستحمام، ومزيل العرق، وان شاء الله كمان في المستقبل رح يكون في كثير منتجات. هلا بالنسبه للمشاكل اللي بتواجهنا خلال هذا المشروع، اول شيء مشروعنا بيحتاج شهاده الجي ام بي سيرتيفيكت تطلع عن طريق المؤسسه العامه للغذاء والدواء، وبتحتاج لاختبارات وفحوصات من الجمعية العلمية الملكية، أحيانا بتكون مكلفة جدا لحتى نقدر إنه نصدر هذا المنتج، ولحتى نقدر إنه ندخله على الصيدليات والسوق الخارجي والمحلي نحتاج لهذه الشهادات، فهي جدا مهمة. كمان من المشاكل اللي أنا بواجهها إنه أحيانا في نقص في الموارد الموجودة في الأردن، سواء كانت برو ماتيريال، باكجينج ماتيريال، أو أشياء ثانية غيرها. مشروعي كمان بيحتاج لتوجيه ومساعدة ونصائح من الناس بالبزنس ديفلوبمنت، بالبزنس بلاننج، بالماركتينج بلاننج. أحيانا أنا بحتاج مساعدة بهاي الشغلات، كوني إنه أنا بكون ماسكة هاي الشغلات مع أفراد عائلتي. هلا أنا لأني بطمح إني أشوف هذا المشروع كبير ومميز في الأردن، فأنا بحاجة إني أحل هاي المشاكل. كمان أنا بطمح إني أشوف هذا المشروع بخدم وبقدم وظائف للشباب، وكمان إنه يكون يلهمهم على الابتكار والبحث والتطوير. كمان أنا بيهمني إني أوعي الناس على أهمية النباتات، أوعيهم على أهمية النحل وكيف هم بيهمونا، تكون الأهمية والمصلحة متبادلة بيننا وبين الطبيعة. كمان أنا بيهمني إنه تتوفر عنا هاي الموارد في الأردن ونقدر نستغلها، تكون موارد أردنية طبيعية 100%. وبالنهاية بحب أحكي إنه بتمنى مشروعي يلاقي الدعم والاهتمام اللي هو بيستاهله. وشكرا.
Hi, I'm Layla from Layla Assam Fine Jewelry. It started in 2014 when I used to work for a diamond manufacturing company in Dubai. I learned so much about diamonds, from mining, cutting, polishing, distribution, a lot about the whole industry, really. To tell you the truth, my heart was always set on design, so it only made sense to take what I had between my hands and try to design jewelry for the first time. Between 2014 and 2018, it was mainly about discovering the industry. It was about turning this passion into a business. It was about learning about the product, manufacturing, legalizing, accounting, you name it. In 2018, while still working from home, I was able to create my first collection. In 2019, we opened our first store in Amman. This was very exciting for us. This is when we discovered the retail world. This is when we got to know our clientele and who the Layla Assam girl is. And then 2020 hit. This period was an emotional roller coaster. Now we had to start looking for solutions. I attended every webinar I could think of. I attended online courses. I networked with so many people going through the same thing. It was brainstorming mainly. We had to survive this. And this is when we started looking for partners. We're lucky enough to have found a strategic partner who has so much experience and who I'm able to learn from every single day. 2021 is about implementing our dreams. It's about growing. It's about getting ready for post-COVID-19. It's about making our jewelry accessible. We're now in 4 different cities and constantly working on improving our e-commerce. We realize that the world has changed. Our product is not enough anymore. It's not enough for our also intelligent clientele, and we have changed. So we decided to build what's called a lifestyle brand around Layla Assam Fine Jewelry. This lifestyle brand is called Golden Boho. That being said, if you fall, get back up. You'll find yourself to be quite resilient. Secondly, adapt. Speak to others. Network with others. You might find that so many other people are going through the same challenges. Finally, innovate. Keep innovating, because that's what will keep you inspired. Thank you so much for listening.
بنشكركم لمتابعة فعالياتنا اليوم. الفرصة بعدها متاحة لتقدموا مشاريعكم وأفكاركم، وبتقدروا تشاركوا في برنامج مسرع الأعمال LevelUP من خلال الموقع الإلكتروني levelupjordan.org أو من خلال changelabsme.org. كمان رح يوصلكم إيميل فيه استبيان لتخبرون عن رأيكم بالحصة التدريبية. رح يوصلكم اليوم إن شاء الله. وإذا كان عندكم أي استفسارات تقدروا تشاركونا فيها وإحنا حنجاوب على جميع أسئلتكم. نشكر حضوركم مرة ثانية وبنتمنى لكم عطلة نهاية أسبوع سعيدة. شكرا لكم.